brings an artist with him, an actor, singer, rapper, and he talks to him about his successes and failures. And so, in watching the show is just so interesting because there's a lot of cooking shows on, but I love the way they mix the art with the chefs. A lot of these chefs are self-made, and I said, wow. I said, look at how the industry has changed with Instagram. These are people that just really innately know how to cook because maybe their grandfather and their mother were really great cooks, but they never went to chef school. But they have chef quality food, and they just started like Instagramming pictures, and they started getting a following from that. So I think it's really when you understand who you are and you understand your value, that something like the Instagram could, could spark attention. And they were saying, well, I just decided to just take a picture of what I made. And when I took a picture, I said, hey, I've got this on the menu today. If you want it, call this number. And they started blowing up. So, once they had that validation, it's like, wow, I can make this into a career. This is something I can monetize. And so a lot of them went on to do the pop-up trucks, and then now they got brick and mortar places, and they're thinking about, going to Africa too. And so it's just amazing. We live in a creative time.
So what we're talking about is entrepreneurship in art and entertainment. I'm super drawn to what you said that you're working on. If you could take us from today, can you cast a vision 10 plus years out of how you think you as an entrepreneur are going to be affecting that sphere of influence with what you're doing with the kids right now?
Beautiful. First of all, I say that the points that you made about art as or business coming first. Everyone is a business. Everyone is a company. Folks don't realize that the Instagram, like, everyone hates on algorithm-based finding and whatever, but that's actually bringing the world together, right? Like, us in this room would not have gotten together because of other network effects that had to happen, and so on and so forth. My thing with art, what we're trying to do at Smooth, in fact, the question that you asked was the central question that I was in a meeting all day yesterday with my team for, which is to define a new kind of vision. To how do you bring? So this is when I started the company. We had this central question of what would a group chat of legends look like, right? Just think of that in your head. Your legends, your idols, your rivals, your storytellers. If you put them all in a group chat, which is the most like personal form of communication we have today, like I'm not talking about those big family chats that you may have on like WhatsApp or like other things, but the close intimate chat with like 3 of your college buddies. Like that's where you actually get majority of like good advice from, and that you actually implement because you trust and know the person. And so the kind of direction we're taking it that in is, yes, there's art, and art's created by everyone. So if you use the app, you can basically pick artists. Like you can pick a thought leader like Naval, you can pick Kanye West, whoever clicks with your personality and vibe, and bring that into like that chat, and they'll generate. You can with the press of a button, you can generate sort of what inspiration you need at that moment. And then the best part about it is that the system learns based on what you share to your friends. So it says, okay, this guy likes more like aggressive like let's get going kind of stuff, or they prefer like more of a Taylor Swift or chilled out kind of vibe, then it'll show you more of that. And I want so I'm using famous people right now, but I've already I've had artist friends. I grew up in Dubai, I grew up in India, tons of creatives who didn't get a chance for exposure. So I'm seeding them in who are, so say they're an independent songwriter or independent rapper, putting them on the same stage as a Kanye West or a Drake, and say, how do your lyrics stand up to those? So in that way, everyone's art is getting, like, those guys are still writing brilliant, genius stuff. It's just they don't have the clicks or the views or the hype behind them. So this brings them all on a level playing field. And it's just for fun. It helps me on the back end. How we kind of generate funding is not on specific user data, but seeing the trends ahead of time. So if I find an indie songwriter, okay, this guy's his songwriting is powerful, his lyrics are powerful, people are sharing them, I can say, okay, in 9, 6, 10 months, this content that he's creating is going to be popular, so let's make merchandise for that. Let's prepare for that wave to come and feed the hype cycle and things like that. So it's I don't believe in algorithmic thinking, because that's eventually what that leads to. But it's humans finding other humans and stuff that breeds that connection again. Just like, like what's the beauty of San Francisco? Why are people still choosing to live here even though it's so expensive? It's a small town. Everyone like freaking knows each other. Everyone's one step removed from somebody else. Why can't the world be like that? And why can't our artists be like that? Why, if I grew up in India, I may have never heard of some artists. Or if I grew up in like London, I may not have heard of like African artists. So,
Yeah.
sorry, the mic. But that's kind of where I feel like art and business and technology and stuff are going to meet, is humans finally not getting like fake connections in the forms of likes and tweets and things like that and retweets, but personal connection when your friend, your best friend, right, picks the best advice from you from like a Google or an ultimate search engine and gives that to you. And then the next thing that we're adding is sort of payments. So the advice that you do give or the art that you do send, the lyrics that you do send, how much are they worth to you when you're sending it to that person? So like an e-gift card with, say, I give you advice, I say it's worth $100. If you do that task, then you unlock that cash reward. So putting those like great lyrics into effect. And what am I saying? It's not, imagine, I've actually built it, it's on the App Store if you guys want to go download it. But that's kind of what I see the future as. And my bet is that we'll see a rise of more and more independent content producers, even on the next level, like after YouTube. Because I have 7-year-old, 8-year-old cousins who think YouTube is just way too big. Like for them, YouTube is what like Oprah was for me growing up. So they never see themselves as now being able to like get on YouTube. But for me, YouTube was like, that's like, just kids like FaceTiming and putting their calls or like doing dumb stuff on there. But now it's become like a very Hollywood professional grade thing. So the next wave is that these kids are finding outlets on the internet. That's why things like private Notion documents, if you guys have heard of the startup Notion, or like private people have private Instagrams like that they only keep to 4 or 5, 6 people. So people are going back inwards. There was a huge explosion of social sharing in this like Web 2.0 wave where everyone just wanted to like friend request each other. And now it's going back inward to like the smaller group chats. And I kind of call them as islands. People are going back to their islands. And I see this while I'm traveling around the world. I see this in India. I see this here. I was in London for a bit. So when people go back inwards, what are they taking with them? Because they're still connected to the internet. They're still a channel. Right? But are they just sending the same ridiculous memes that are being produced by like companies like Coca-Cola and whatever and fueling the sort of consumerist mindset? Or are they finding genuine, real art made by people who experience life different than them? And that's what's going to motivate them. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, so I think for innovation, we have to be surrounded by artists. We have to appreciate because that's how it opens your mind. It gives you the exposure, right? So I mean, I'll give a specific example. Like, if I'm 100% broke and I'm homeless, I think there's like a innermost part of me that I'll be a stand-up comedian. Like, it's like, I don't know, like if I want to do right now.
That's Dave Chappelle's story, by the way.
Oh wow! So definitely, I have a deep respect for artists, and with specifically our company, like my vision was to like every home we create, we want to use local. We want to empower local. So let it be soaps, bed sheets, decor has to be local. So every home you go in different parts of the world, you know that this was created by this person, and we want to include RFIDs where you can just scan and buy them. So that's how we're giving exposure to those artists on a global level. And I think like if every firm, like there is a way out for every firm to empower these artists. It's just like you just have to figure out a way, like the way you said, like, it could be as simple as using the locally produced, locally made. And that's how, because artists, they're very different people. Like for us, like what drives us, like, what motivates us to get out of the bed is entirely different what motivates them. Like it's not the dollar that necessarily motivates them, right? So, but at the same time, we as a society understand that we need those people. So that is, that's one thing. Another thing, like, as I said, like exposure. Another thing I wanted to touch base, what you said, like, it doesn't matter, like, we have 2,000 friends on Facebook. What it really matters is, like, how many people can I pick up the phone right now and say, like, hey, I need advice on this. Or, like, I am stressed, I need your help. And that's the bubble, like, we are getting into, like, this, let's say, Instagram followers and all that. Like, how many followers? Like, let it be an authentic account. That person has 200 followers. you're like, okay, I don't think so. He's good enough. Whereas one person comes with 40,000 followers, XYZ fake, blah blah blah. Oh, he's a big shot. Like, just like we need to hire him. So that's a kind of thing, like, you were saying, like, people are going back into the island, and that's where, like, our concept was, like, like in senior living communities, there are like hundreds and thousands of people living, but at the same time they're just hanging out with 4 or 5 of their closest friends, and that's how we wanted to incorporate that in a single family home, and that's what we're doing. So yeah, I think great thoughts.
I'd say even going as far to say what you said about companies being responsible for the promotion of art, it's almost like as the government does it through Title 11 and things in school. We sponsor art programs, we sponsor we sponsor sport programs in school, we sponsor art programs. But that when that goes to the next level, yes, there are college sport programs, but there are no college art programs. Or if they are, they're like scattered barely on the East Coast, maybe concentrated in a couple of places. They're not spread across the country. And that's just America. I don't even think art programs exist at high school level in most parts of the world. So we're losing out on kids who could be artists, could be great artists, but we'll never know. So yeah.
Well, I also like the other side of it is now we're seeing that by not cultivating the arts, we're losing out on entrepreneurs. We're losing out on business innovation because there's a whole part of your brain and creativity that's not being cultivated. And that, like entrepreneurs and artists really have a lot in common. Artists really are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs really are artists. Like, I started my career out working in Portugal on a mission, and I funded myself. One of the ways I funded myself is by creating paintings, oil paintings. And these guys were teasing me and looking at them and saying, I can't believe you haven't painted since you got married. And I was trying to get an answer to it. It's interesting, in my career, I started painting, and then I got some encouragement through an entrepreneur who started selling my art, and I was good. I didn't realize it, but I was good at that side too. But then I resonated in the art. I would love to paint people and faces, and I'd love to paint people that were older or homeless, because I felt I was competing with God if they already looked beautiful. And it's interesting, the shift, I don't really feel like I stopped so much, but the shift was when I really got involved more and more in social entrepreneurship. And I feel like I just changed medium. Because what's really fulfilling is like working with people like Michelle, helping her realize that what really brings her fulfillment is helping at-risk women have another shot. And I'm like, that's the most beautiful painting already. And we get to co-work with God to bring their destiny out. And I like to be a little resource to help her be a little bit more effective. And I see the convergence. So it's not, this art, entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship. I see all these connections between them.
We're going to transition to the topic of family. We're going to skip over.
Can I add one to
Go ahead, yeah, please.
So you said artists are entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs are artists. And I think like that's really powerful because the best artists are provocative, right? If no one gets an emotion from your art, then you're kind of making crap, right? If no one feels either happy, joy, sad, anger, whatever from what you're making, it doesn't impact the world, doesn't do anything. So I actually want to read a review that I just got 7 hours ago on my app. This may be one of the most useless I've ever come across. Using AI-generated fake quotes from celebrities, some trash, some not, to motivate a crowd of wannabe narcissists. This app certainly serves humanity well. Can't wait until it's no longer free and its creator can start making money on such a worthless app and stroke that ego some more. Right? So I think we're hedged as entrepreneurs because we make money independently. Tomorrow, even if Google Ads withdraws my account or whatever, sure, I'm not gonna go homeless. But if you're an artist and your art's not being shared and platforms white out you and your name, or someone hates on you like that, it actually affects your ability to produce content and to produce things and affect your life and your quality of life.
You have to overcome it.
We have to overcome it, and I think we have to safeguard them as companies. We owe them.
The typical story is Van Gogh, a tragic story of a guy whose paintings sold for more than anything and died in abject poverty. But you don't share the other side of his brother Teo, who believed in him. I think it was Teo, actually. It was his name, Theo, I think. It was the only one who believed in him. And what a visionary. And he encouraged him when he got so beat up over and over by all those crappy reviews. And he said, no, keep doing. You're changing the world. And he also died. I think they died close to each other. So both of them died. But Theo's vision, the vision of them together and that partnership of what they were able to accomplish, it's really beautiful and really powerful. And they overcame it all. And look at how much better they made the world.
So we're going to talk family and kind of entrepreneurship, families. And I'm just going to keep kind of facilitating the conversation. It'd be nice, obviously, for folks that haven't shared yet to kind of chime in. You know, it'd be ideal to have a collection of everybody being able to be heard. And of course, having the cameras capture it, like I mentioned, you'll likely, in these little snippets, you'll likely get something that you haven't been able to capture before. A key thing to think about when you're, for the next half, because we're halfway through, but we really only covered kind of one topic, you know, so we want to be more brevity. So let me tell you why brevity matters so much in context of a thing like this, especially since we're not live streaming. I can give a little bit more guidance. You know, I've done 20 events in the last year and a half, so I've understood a lot of the, like, how do you get more out of an event besides the experience? Instagram stories are 15-second vertical videos. And so you definitely want to think in context of, like, people are used to giving their attention to a soundbite that's 15 seconds or less. Instagram newsfeed is 60 seconds. And so, like, that's kind of the range, right? Like, the pre-15 second is like the sweet spot. Like, you do that, you have somebody's attention for those 15 seconds. Like, they're not going to abandon you at 7 seconds when you're there halfway done with your little thing that you want to say. So saying things shortly is not just so we can get through more content together. It's also so that it's usable, because you have 3 4K cameras in this room with high quality audio and a really beautiful environment. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, I do have like 3 or 4 pieces of gold. And if I could throw those out in 15-second segments over the course of the next, you know, this session and the next one, it's like, then I go online and I pull that video and I use it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have something I didn't used to have. So that's one thing. But I want to transition to family. And so, you know, family is radically impacted by entrepreneurship. Radically impacted by entrepreneurship. And we, people, you know, we don't do things for the benefit of our family in the way that maybe we intend to on a regular basis. A lot of times we do things for the benefit of our endorphins and serotonin and you know, dopamine. We do things for the benefit of our platform, our position, our finances, our bank account. Like, and a lot of it's subconscious, because consciously we want to feel really good about ourselves. So consciously we're like, I'm all about my family, I'm all about my kids, I'm all about my legacy. Like, that feels good consciously. Like, I'm one of the good guys, good gals. But the reality is, like, subconsciously, a lot of it is like, how do I look? How do I sound? Do people like me? Am I going to make money? Am I going to, you know, so that stuff. And that affects family pretty radically, because entrepreneurship is so risky. And usually the person that is with a entrepreneur or under an entrepreneur, a child, or even somebody that's supporting an entrepreneur, a parent or something of that nature, they are like looking at a person that's prone to risk, courage, recklessness, right? Prone to those things, and like, hey, you're negatively affecting me. And when I try to tell you, you proved that I'm wrong, that doesn't make me feel any better. And so that's probably the way entrepreneurship affects family the most, is like, the entrepreneur is all good, because you probably wouldn't pursue risk unless you desired the way it makes you feel. But your spouse, your child, your parents, the people around you, even your employees, right? They can be like, whoa, like, you're not self-aware at all, because you're causing chaos in my world you're not even aware of whatsoever. And so that's why I say, like, family and community. And oftentimes in the context of like a business, everybody's like, we're family. And like, you're not family. There's no such thing. Like, family's blood. Like, family means that when somebody's on drugs, you don't abandon them. You do intervention after intervention. Family means when they steal from you, you like give them a second chance. You don't call the cops on them. Like, that's family. Family's like when No matter what happens, you stand by their side because biologically that's kind of the role that you are playing in in each other's lives in society. At best, a business is a sport. And if you're playing well, you're on first string. And if you're not, then you get benched. It's pretty simple. Like the winners get played, and the people that, like Alex Rodriguez, great batter, that dude was benched for a while. Eventually he just became the DH because like he just wasn't playing well. And so like even the greats, the Hall of Fames, it doesn't matter. Eventually they get benched. At one point, Michael Jordan wasn't allowed to still play basketball. It didn't matter if he owned the Wizards. Like it just didn't qualify anymore. It wasn't like it used to be. And so that's another thing that makes entrepreneurship very strange in the sense of family and community. Because what happens for entrepreneurs is it's a huge advantage to manipulate yourself and other people around you. Okay, so if you can convince yourself that you and your 3 startup buddies, or you and all the peers that you're kind of building this thing with, right? If you can convince yourself we're family, because we hug each other and we say I love you and we do nice things for each other and we go out of each other. If you can convince yourself that you're family, then you can convince them they're family, and then you might be able to get them to do things for you that only family would actually do for you. Like work 70 hours a week, or work for half of what they're worth, or do things that are really on your shoulders as the lead guy. But so that's super, super important when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I've never really had a job in 22 years of my career. I'm 38. So I started starting companies and building teams, kind of 16 or so. And I have become much more self-aware recently. I think the events have done a lot for me with self-awareness because, I'll watch, kind of what happens. We have to post-produce, edit stuff. And I'll be like, I said that? Do I believe that? I think I'm lying to myself. I think I found a liar in my life. Me! That whole type of thing. It's like, I don't think I'm very self-aware. So you kind of become more self-aware. And a big thing for me is that family dynamic. Obviously, we could go pretty deep, like what we hope for our children in the future. Like I have a 6 and 10-year-old. Obviously, it's going to get more and more to where I will be less focused on my career achievements solely, and I'll start to be co-focused on my career achievements and not career only, just things I want to do in my life and the things that my children want to do, and empowering them to have the environment for them to win, even at the sacrifice of my own wins, right? Now we're going to transition to business. I'm going to open it back up because obviously most of us have more to say about business. The following topic is education, and the final topic is going to be on government. And family is a little bit more sticky, so I just kind of shared a little bit of the stuff that's on my mind. And before we transition to business, I'll say this as well. Entrepreneurship has caused me to go bankrupt. So I went bankrupt in 2010. I overextended myself to the max in 2008 and 9. And no matter what I did, I could not dig myself out of the hole. And I never would have intended to go bankrupt. Dude, I never missed a bill. I mean, not one time. I paid everything early, and I never would have borrowed money and put myself in that position. And it was weird how it happened. The ultimate thing that happened, I went to Wells Fargo, who I owed a bunch of money to. And the lady's like, oh, you're just like Walt Disney. Your story's crazy. I can't even do all that stuff. Yeah, you're just an entrepreneur. All you guys go bankrupt. What are you talking about? You tell me not to pay you? She's like, well, not officially. So I went bankrupt because of, that affects a lot of things because of entrepreneurship. It affects my family, right? I just got divorced. So I was married for 17 years. I was with my kid's mom for 21 years. I would say my entrepreneurial craziness probably was the primary factor that continued to wear down the overcoming, we're going to make it past this, nothing can stop us. And it wasn't some big, huge thing that happened. It was just 20 years of just exhaustion, of just no stability, and I'm just constantly doing crazy things with not as much sensitivity and empathy as I should have used. So now on the flip side, I just sold my company. And I have 145 employees, and there's a dozen employees that were founding employees that if you come work for free, dude, one day you're going to be rich, that whole thing. And I was right this time, right? So people are benefited, and my family's benefited, right? We have no debt. and we have money, and we were able to see other family members and friends that are drastically benefited by the entrepreneurship. But you see, it's not bankruptcy and divorce. It's also not a big liquidation event and, influence. It's not one or the other. Like, if anything is bipolar, it's entrepreneurship and the way it impacts the entirety of our lives. So that's my kind of middle of the convo rant. Not something that is as easy to talk openly family-wise, but it kind of sets the tone for vulnerability. So I'm hoping that we can maybe go a little bit more risky together and maybe drop the fig leaf a little bit more, right? And like, this is probably as safe of a place as you're going to have in the middle of a workday to kind of be like, well, why not talk about entrepreneurship's impact in this, because it seems like that's the tone that's been set. So I'm going to transition to business now. So let's just talk entrepreneurship, business, and back to facilitating the conversation.
So recently I went to a very powerful workshop by Lynn Twist. It was called The Soul of Money. It happened at 1440 in Santa Cruz, the wellness resort. Yeah. So the powerful thing was like, she asked us to face north and close your eyes. Just imagine your parents standing in front of you, your grandparents, your ancestors. What would you say? How would you interact with them, right? And then she said, now turn around, see south. Now see your children, grandchildren, and their children. What would you tell them, right? So that was so powerful to me because, the first thing I would tell my kids and grandkids is just like, you know what? I have no regrets. Even if the startup failed, like, I have no regrets. There was a time in my life where no investors believed in us. Just like it's a stupid idea. There's like, how big is the market? Very valid points, right? But the point is, like, we never gave up, right? But at the same time, now we have investors who are ready to write checks. But what I'm coming to is just down the road, like, I lost my parents' confidence in me because it took us like 1 year or so, and my parents were like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you are a well-qualified engineer, like, you did computer engineering, and what are you doing? Like, and I said, like, you know what, just trust me. Like, it will work. It will take some time. So at the same time, yes, family plays a crucial role in business as well, because once they say, like, you know what, go for it, like, it's a very different motivation rather than your friends and your investors or aspect of it. So having family support is very necessary for any kind of business. So and there's a lot I can talk about family because I'm a very family-oriented person, and but at the same time, and like, this is the least you could do for your kids down the road. It's just like, if they have an idea, just support them in a way, but don't be a liar as well. It's just like, this is the next Tesla or Facebook. It's just like, yeah, it's worth lifting that that's fire, that kind of thing.
So my co-founder is my brother. So it makes for a very interesting dynamic when we're working and when we're not working. We're like basically always working. And in those situations, like, the company's literally family, right? So and this is an open question to the room because him and I constantly talk about how to solve this and how we can become better at conflict resolution, because there's been times where him and I have like not gone like longer than 24 hours from talking. There's been like stuff thrown at each other and like things said as it happens, and we ultimately reconcile. But how do we because we're both sort of very type A personalities, and we attack the problem head on. If there's a truth that needs to be said, we just say it out loud. And that's the pact that we kind of understanding we had before starting it. We even live together right now, so it makes for even more heated discussions. How do you make like a kind of firewall between, hey, if you're working with family, hey, we're family right now, we're co-founders right now, or employee boss right now, or whatever that dynamic is. It's an open question.
I think setting the tone for any kind of relationship, whether it's business or family, up front is probably the most important. Definitely the biggest, one of the bigger mistakes that I've made in my entrepreneurial journey is being so excited to start a project that I don't really set the foundation for it. Cast some kind of vision, set some kind of ground rules, set expectations and obligations up front. And in a working relationship with somebody that you hire, that's really important because that helps them navigate the relationship with you, that helps them navigate their expectations of you, and vice versa. And you can always go back to the contract. And I believe in literal contracts. Everybody should be under contract and say, this is what we agreed on, and take the amount of time necessary to actually agree on something together and have those hard conversations like you're saying, and then just always refer back to that and say, this is what we agreed on and signed on. And to what Ian was sharing about with family, I think things get messier with friends and family because there's that blood bond. You're like, or they're not going anywhere, or you're married, they're not going anywhere, so I can just kind of do whatever I want, and it's all going to turn out in the long run. And I think entrepreneurs kind of are wired that way. We're very risk tolerant, so we're just like, well, I'm just going to, jump out of this plane and catch the parachute on the way down. It's all going to work out. Well, not everybody around you is wired that way. A lot of people, your parents are like, why would you risk the safety of being an engineer for this thing that's so, it doesn't make sense to them. Not everybody's wired like that. So I think it's incumbent on, I think that's the right word, I'm just trying to sound smart. It is the entrepreneur's, I don't know if duty is the right word either, but it's the entrepreneur should be conscientious to think about the other people around him and say, hey, my actions affect other people, and how can I set the tone for that healthy environment where I'm not being inhibited to chase after a dream, a destiny, something that I'm passionate about, but I'm also not affecting other people. There's a saying that says, move at the speed of a team. And so a lot of times the team takes the visionary, the entrepreneur can see far off into the future, and they're running after it. And the team's like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Oh, just trust me. I don't know I can't see anything, And so the entrepreneur has to be able to say, hey, this is where we're going, and be able to lead the team, because that's the only way you're going to get anywhere is with the team.
You're saying a lot of great stuff, and one of the things that just came to my mind is that personal responsibility, accountability, and commitment from entrepreneurs take a back seat sometimes. You don't think of the consequences because there's, in the family unit, you have a safety net. So, familiarity breeds contempt, and at the end of the day, if you don't have a commitment to a future, the responsibility of your family and where, what your vision is, you're left with, I'll catch the parachute on my way down. But if you're thinking ahead and you become acutely aware of, like, there's my family that it's affecting everybody, and I need to have a look at what my commitment is. Am I committed to, mayhem on the way down, catching the parachute? Or should I just put the parachute on if in case I do that? Therefore, my family will be in a safer environment. I'll actually achieve my goal and not get killed on the way. I think personal responsibility, accountability have a lot of qualities to look at as you're building a foundation for the future. I think it's important to say, I'm committed to my family's well-being and my safety and everything else. I think it's a big deal.
One, we're going to So I'm going to have us do two things. One, we're going to transition to education. And two, I want to do something to remind us what's happening with education and training in general. I want everybody to stand up, and I want you to sit in a different seat. I don't care what seat, different seat. Actually, none of these four right here. So sit in any of these seats back there. Leave these four open. So number one, I want you to sit in a different seat. Any seat besides these four. And number two, we're going to switch to education. I'm going to explain why I just had you switch seats. Michael, you want to come join us? There's a seat for you, my friend. Okay, why did I have you stand up and switch seats? Well, one, I wanted my team to actually see what it looks like if I'm in the middle for the webcast. So, that's my strategic reason. And two, nothing is changing more than education. Like, of all the things we're talking about, there is nothing that is changing more drastically than education today. And people don't like change. Most of you were a little bit bothered you just had to change seats. Like, you're kidding. It's only 25 minutes, bro. Leave me alone. I want to sit where I'm sitting. And that is the essence of what's happening in education today. And we're going to talk about politics in a moment as kind of the last thing. And, like, things are drastically changing. The fact that Donald Trump is president, or that you have people that are in the running right now, guys like Andrew Yang and kind of a business guy bringing something totally different, or people like Bernie Sanders still in the running again, like a completely different type of candidate, or you just see like Ron Paul, the love that people had for these like non-political people that are rising up and changing the entire game of politics. And so when we talk about entrepreneurship in, education, like today, what's happening is insane, drastic change. And so that was another reason why just doing a physical act to remind ourselves of how much things are changing right now is a shaker to be like, oh yeah, like things are definitely different. Like spending $50,000 to $500,000 to go get an undergrad or go through your PhD, like that is not necessarily the only option. It's seen differently today than ever before. And now people are like, what is a vocational training option? Like, is it going to events on Eventbrite? Like, is it listening to podcasts? Like, what is it? So let's talk about entrepreneurship in education and anything having to do with training, that sphere, the stuff that you're seeing happen right now. And specifically, I'd love it to be kind of like, hey, here's a case study I'm seeing. Like, have you guys seen what General Assembly is doing? Like, 18 grand, you go through their program in 3 months, and all of a sudden, you're ready for a $100,000 coding job. Have you guys seen that Cortana has 10 million people that go to Cortana, and they can get all the education from Penn, Princeton, Stanford for free? Did you guys know that Creative Live has maybe the best education content with the best UI UX that there's ever been of online education, and it's free? Most of their content has a free entry. Like, this is the type of stuff I'd love to hear us talk about. Like, people are being entrepreneurial in education, and this is changing the game right now. So I just would love to kind of hear thoughts of what's happening in education and entrepreneurship. Go ahead.
I work for a giant aerospace company, and the problem we couldn't hire qualified personnel. So what my corporation did is they started a program at a junior college to actually train people to be able to do this kind of stuff. And it worked out, very well, because they, couldn't get people. Now they have a pool of people that are actually, like, groomed for their specific thing they're doing. And it's just kind of interesting. It's because, you have a need, and the corporation, they have to fill it somehow. And, I work in Silicon Valley. The other issue is the other facility that they're getting the people to from the junior college. It's not in the high-tech area, so they don't have like the skills that are just readily available all around here. So they have to kind of grow it. So.
Yeah. I'm Michael Wee, a former VC investor, entrepreneur, and so forth. So actually in education, I was a board observer at a company called Udacity, which is doing kind of like paid online courses for specialized fields, particularly in software engineering. So they have a lot of what they call nano degrees, actually. So it's, you pay $300, $400, $500 for a nano degree, and then you go through a multi-week course, and you learn about how to become a data scientist, and there's a certification at the end, and you can go to your employer and be, hey, look, I have a nano degree from Udacity in data science, in how to build a self-driving car, in AI, in machine learning, in React front-end software engineering. And the idea there is there's kind of this, in kind of like augmenting education through these classes, there's kind of a spectrum. On one end, you have kind of like the Udemys of the world, which are, you know, like courses that are mass produced, like lower price point, and so forth. And then on the other end, you have the General Assemblies, which are super high touch, all day, every day for 3 months. And then Udacity kind of went through the idea maze, which is kind of, they tried every single combination of these things of time and high touch, low touch, of price, of quality, and where they landed is this nano degree model, which is working fantastically well for them. The idea being, okay, it can be an entry-level on-ramp where you're not a software engineer, say, and then you learn like one specific thing, you take a nano degree, and it's kind of like asynchronous in that it's not live, it's over the internet, but it's also high touch in that you actually have a TA who's going to, where there's office hours, they'll grade your work, and they're kind of like, there's you know, they actually hold office hours, so there's actually a human expert touch there, and that's the one that's, they believe, and I might be biased here, that's working the best out of all of these models. And you know, they're doing fantastically well in the consumer market where people are just augmenting their skills. They're also doing extremely well in the enterprise market where, like your employer, a lot of firms are like if you're, say, even this is probably particularly true of companies that have large software engineering teams but aren't traditional tech companies. So, for example, Nike has, I forget exactly, but they have thousands of software engineers, and you know, for them, they might have, Nike might, or you know, like Goldman Sachs or something might have trouble attracting, you know, the top of the top data scientists in the world because they all want to go to Google or Facebook. So then for them, it's like, okay, we have like an entry-level data scientist, but we want them to become the best. So how do we train them to, you know, teach them new skills, new techniques, best practices, and then for a lot of them, the answer is something like Udacity, where you take, Udacity has the entry-level courses, but they also have the like, hey, I know something about machine learning, but how do I take it to the next level? And here's the course for you. I'll shut up now.
Gotcha. That's
Go ahead.
Well, I feel uniquely qualified to address this question since I have 2 kids in college right now and 1 on the way. And I had a unique conversation with my son that I come from a family, my dad was a physician and his dad was, and everybody's been through college and educated. There was no question that I would go to college. With my son, you know, the question was, what's the right fit? What do you really want to do? And what came up was, well, the approach I took with him was, if you don't go to college, you need to come to me with a pitch. And it has to be a really great idea. And I have to say, I will invest the money I've set aside for college in that. But short of doing that, I expect you're going to go get this stamp of approval called a college degree, right? As somebody who's been in both large and small businesses, I think one of the challenges is there's a move toward more informal education, which I think there's a lot of benefits to. I think the challenge is, how do you at scale validate the qualifications of an employee? And I think it's really difficult when we get away from this stamp that I have a degree in X. And I've worked with a lot of people who have advanced degrees as well, but if you take away that stamp of approval, how do you validate the qualifications of an employee in a way that's not terribly cumbersome? And I would just throw that out as a challenge, I think.
So let me ask you, a reply to that would be, if you have, say, a PhD from Harvard, if they didn't have that, are they any less smart or capable as an individual? Just purely, if you met them, would you be able to say, like, hey, this guy is a smart guy?
I don't believe personally it's a stamp of intelligence.
Okay, good.
But what I do believe is it has been a stamp of knowledge in a given field, which can come about in different ways. That knowledge can come about, but the question is, how do you validate it?
And we also used to smoke cigarettes like everywhere, right? So, sorry, I don't mean as a diss or anything. It's more like, who decides that it takes 4 years to learn something? Like, that's, in my mind, is really arbitrary. It's like some dude's got in a room and said, hey, okay, we can charge them for like 2 years, but you know what the hell? We might as well, they'll pay double. We'll charge them for 4. So that's sort of the personal beef I had. And I might be biased in my own ways, since all I did was programming, and I love programming, and I've been doing it since I was a kid. So going to college, sitting in those classes was almost like torture for me, having to resit through all that material. What ended up happening was I dropped out. I found out about this thing called Lambda School. You guys heard of that? Yeah. Went through Lambda School, excellent program. Finished that. Started smooth. Started sort of meeting people instead. Moved to San Francisco. Met people in the Bay. Found my niche to apply like the skills that I already had. I went back, was an EM, was a team lead for Lambda, leading the new crop of engineers that they're building. And the coolest part about all that program, and I'm really jealous for it because I have a ton of debt, is that they don't ask you to pay anything till they get you a job. So as you're saying, sort of, where does that how do you get that rubber stamp? Well, you reverse the incentives. Say, okay, the money only comes in when the school gets you a job, and how do they get you a job? They ensure you that they train you to a level where you can do the job. And I think tech is maybe in a unique position where jobs in tech, yeah, you can pretty much run someone through like a 3-hour interview and kind of get an idea, okay, this person can write code. Maybe not that they're a good person or they're a good fit for your company or your culture, but you can get a sense of whether they can write code or not. So I think Lambda and all these schools are unique in a unique position to take advantage of that. And as we'll see more and more of these schools do this thing where they'll become a direct pipeline into companies who come to them with projects, and Lambda I think is already doing this, where they'll say, okay, you have this project, we have 7 people, including a PM, including a designer, including yada, yada, yada. This is the fixed cost, just pay us, and you can hire these guys, and we'll onboard them for you. We'll ramp them up to whatever your specific needs are within their program. So education kind of becomes dynamic, right? You're saying it's a rubber stamp to get that first job, to get your foothold in the career place. Well, why not it be even more tuned to the person getting that education, that degree, right? There's computer science. When I walked into the computer, it was like, oh, do you want to study computer science, computer engineering? It's like, well, even within those things, there's so many flavors. There's so much stuff to do. I mean, I could be a VR developer. I could be an augmented reality developer. I could be anything, right? So college isn't prepared to sort of even take advantage of that. I mean, Carnegie Mellon, which is like the top university for CS, they added software engineering like 6 years ago within their like official list of majors and degrees. So you're telling me that like you want people to work in an industry that's so dynamic, that changes every 4 months, where API calls get like useless in 4 months. Their apps being updated every single day. We're moving more and more into real time. But the people that are the pipeline that's bringing people into it is like stuck on this 4-year, maybe even 10-year, 20-year path of where they don't change syllabus, don't change their metrics, don't change how they teach. I think there's no contest who's going to win. And I would even go as far as to say, if this is on camera, that there will probably be half the number of colleges within the next 10 to 20 years.
I feel very confident that the implosion of student loan debt will make the housing crisis and the mortgage crisis look like a game. I think that the intensity and the venomous response of students that currently are carrying loans that have graduated and students that are currently in school, it will be a unexpected collective backlash that will have the intensity of like the Tea Party movement or Occupy Wall Street. It'd be very, very interesting to see what happens. I can't imagine it going much more than another 5 years or so, before this happens, because there's just too much money. There's no way to save the student loan crisis. A couple of things that I think will happen when that goes down is that most private schools that don't have huge endowments, they're just going to go away. And alternatives to traditional education will rise. The stuff I'm very excited about entrepreneurially right now is the entrepreneurship that's being embedded into private high schools. So most don't know this, but like the #1 private high school in the entire nation of any private high school is said to be Valley Christian School in San Jose, which is unusual because it's like a Christian school, the #1 high school in the nation, really? But the thing is, they have the top space program and they have the top deep sea program. They qualified for the X Prize 2 years ago. Last year, they got runner-up for solving pollution in the ocean. Last month, they won the X Prize. They beat the whole world, and Valley Christian High School students won the X Prize, won the $1 million from Shell for mapping the ocean. They are one of the only, there's only 8 pods in the bottom of the Monterey ocean, 8 pods like 4,000 or 5,000 feet deep. They were just given one of the pods because of how advanced their students are with deep sea exploration. They used to pay thousands of dollars to do space software to the space station. They just got given a pod that lets them do 10,000 without payment. Like it automated the whole process. And so Valley is going to public schools and saying, like, give us all your students that have 4 Fs or more. They started a program called Quest, like Quest reaching the kids that are forgotten. And they have a program called Firehouse. And basically, if you have 4 Fs or more, you can come to Valley and they'll train you to be a rocket scientist. And I'm at this, it's really powerful. I'm at this graduation, and dude, I'm seeing like criminal parents come in the room. Like, you know when somebody's a criminal, you're like, that's a bad woman right there. And their kids are definitely don't have a shot at life. And I see these like little kids, you know, and they're like, I was told I was a loser my whole life. I basically figured I'd just end up in jail or dead or on drugs, you know, and like everybody told me I was stupid. And you're like looking at this kid and you're like, that kid figured he was going to be a thug. Like that kid figured she was going to end up like using her body to kind of make it in life. Like that is not a good situation. And then they're like, but then I came here and like, I'm a rocket scientist now. And like, I got a scholarship to go to college. And like, I got an interview lined up for me when I graduate. And it's like complete identity shift. So for me, when I think about high school, private high school, it's for me one of the most exciting spaces for entrepreneurship. And that's one example. There's lots of examples. Another thing is like vocational training. I think that some of you in this room, either directly or a first connection, will start your own vocational training program. And you will charge $3,000 or $93,000 to have somebody come and spend a week or a year with you and basically get trained on like how to do what it is that you do. And so these are the entrepreneurial things that I'm really, really, really pumped about. You know, it's like one thing for, you know, both of you have kids in college. How many of you have kids in college? College-age kids. So 3 of you. If your son or daughter come to you and say, hey, I just want to go start a company with my friend. Like you're going to be hesitant, if not completely, no, go to college. Like go learn discipline. Go to the military or go to college. You need discipline. But if your same son or daughter came and said, hey, you won't believe it, but Elon Musk is going to let me go work in his private office and make his coffee and drive him around or to clean his car. Like, I'm just going to be close to the sun. Like, I can go there. I can go to Tesla and be with Elon. Like, for sure, you're going to be like, yeah, of course. Whatever it costs. Like, yeah, it's a special program. I got qualified. It's $250,000. We'll figure it out, man. We'll take a loan. You're going to be with Elon, and he's going to train you, and he's going to start by making you, you know, learn humility and then, like, give you a shot. Yes, the answer is yes. See, that is the type of alternative entrepreneurship and education I'm pretty excited about.
So this is great because it just takes me back. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm touching 60 here. So, but this conversation is fantastic because, first of all, I'm thinking of Trading Places. I don't know if you guys have seen Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, right? I mean, this is right down this line. And then this conversation is, I went to school in Sydney, Australia, and I had 3 buddies of mine. One of them was Pete, Don was his name, and then Ross. But anyway, Peter dropped out of high school, went and became a T-boy for the Daily Telegraph in Sydney, Australia. So he was pushing a cart around serving tea to all the editors and writers of the thing, right? So we thought, loser, blah, 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 you know, you T-boy, T-boy. He ended up buying the whole Daily Telegraph in Sydney, Australia. From being a T-boy, he left at 14 years of age to work for a newspaper firm. And he bought the company. So I think it's in the person. It's what's instilled in you. Like if my son comes to me, which he has, he says, Dad, I have an idea. I mean, I want to do something, but I don't know what it is. Well, get the idea, motivate yourself, inspire yourself and others, sell me the idea, tell me that you're, you know, and go for it. These days are different. I mean, back in the day, life was easier and there wasn't so much information available to you. But nowadays, it's dog eat dog. The middleman is cut out, so it's you. It's all on you. I mean, you don't have a safety net. You know, you cut out the middleman, and the onus is on you to become successful. And if you fail, you fail big. But if you win big. Right. Yeah. So that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's just you know. It's you're 100% correct, and it's in the person. It's in the motivation. Do you have a vision? Do you have a commitment? Do you have are you inspiring? Do you inspire, leadership, entrepreneurship, or are you just a follower really?
So I want to add on that, it's education with a purpose, right? So for first 2 years, I think my GPA was 1 point something. First year was 1 point something, and I was doing computer engineering, whereas I didn't have any passion for coding. It's just I felt it was hot. If I tell other people I'm a computer engineer, just, oh wow, oh, you're a smart guy. That's how it started. But in second year, that was my first edtech startup. It was called Tutor Panda, which was a very real problem that students were struggling to find tutors. And we had the resources within the college who already took the class. So why not connect those people? That's how it started. And that's when I found my purpose of coding, learning. So now I was seeing the coding from a very different perspective. Why? Because that was defining my future. If I learn better, it will help me in my company, right? Another thing that I want to touch, we didn't talk about, is internships. The future of internships has to change. It will completely change. Because of this low GPA, I interviewed for 800 companies, didn't get any job. Still, I was a very smart kid. I am still a smart kid. But on paper, I was not a smart kid because I was having 1.8 something GPA, and no one would even consider talking to me, right? And then I ended up working for a Fortune 100 company and got the job offer in 3 weeks and was leading the project with C-level execs, and they know me personally today. And so it's just I think the future has to change of internships where you work on, you leave that paperwork and all that aside. And that's why I think Apple recently did, and a couple of companies said I think you don't need college degree for a lot of jobs. So I think that will completely change in next 5-10 years. For sure.
And what you're saying about discovering the fire inside of you, kind of realizing that if you judge a fish by its ability to crawl on trees, you're going to think the fish is dumb. My point was that yes, we're kind of all biased in this room because I think we've kind of navigated life and reached this point. Most people, they don't want to do that. They're content. And I think more as coding becomes more and more of a blue-collar job, we're going to see a massive transformation because it's still a very important job. It's a value add to society that's greater than other blue-collar jobs, I'd say. More and more people will find their path to that, right? And what's that going to do for the world? It's already made San Francisco super crowded, right, and expensive. But think of that, the second and third tier effects of that is vocational training becomes more important. Spending one-on-one time with visionaries and people who can think beyond just what's built today becomes more important. And that leads all the way back to the art discussion where people are going back into their groups and sharing mimetics and memes that are important to them. And my point is, education is going to change. I think it's going to be more and more insular and kind of back to how it used to be. Has anyone watched Game of Thrones when Gendry gets the first blacksmith experience, right? It's going to go back. Internships are just going to become, well, hey, we won't even have titles. It's just going to be we're working together on this project.
So we're now into the networking time. So this is, and guys in the recording room, I'm loving you right now. I got a list of reasons why it's super long. I don't have time to tell you about it though. Just know you're loved. You can keep recording for the next 20 minutes because there's no reason not to capture the content unless you need to stop. So that was cool. Did you guys find value in having this kind of conversation? Hearing from different people, kind of pipe off on different things. Like, I think that was super, super cool. One thing that we have to be mindful of for the next session is I am going to have to figure out how to graciously be very strict on the time. And the reason is this. What happens for the next session is I have 16 different banners below us, okay? And for the first banner, it's just opening keynote. And that's going to be me welcoming the audience and then, you know, kind of asking, you know, like interacting with all of you is the opening keynote. And then I basically have like art today, and that's what's on the bottom of the banner for 5 minutes. And then it's like art in the future. And it's news today, and then news in the future. Now, asking somebody for their attention for 90 minutes on the internet is a lot to ask for. You know, it doesn't matter if it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. It's just a lot to ask for. So one thing that helps people stay engaged is to have things move quickly. Right, so if every 5 minutes it feels like, oh, they're on to from the today to the future, or they're on from, you know, business to politics, like, oh, it's moving. Like, I'm not going to leave because that's what's coming next. So I need to figure out how to do that. So my best idea, let's decentralize the decision. My best idea would be that there's 12 of you, and I'm going to give you 6 categories, and 2 of you are each going to take a category. And then I'm just going to have you guys sit in the chairs in that way. And then each of you is going to be the primary person that is speaking for that 5-minute section. Almost like we are having you do a seated community mini keynote, or you are the one that's having the fireside chat. Okay, so the 6 categories that we're going to talk about is art and entertainment is 1, news and media is 2, worship and philanthropy is 3. I'm not going to hand any of you family. I'm going to do family again, not the same thing I talked about, but I'm going to do family again as like a community thing that I'm guiding and talking. So the 4th one would be business and finance. The 5th would be education and training. And the last will be government and politics. So the first thing I need to know, are there 2 people that want to do government and politics? Okay, yes. Anybody else open to doing government and politics and talking about government and politics? Anybody at all? That's fine. So that's all good. So for sure, you want to do future or present?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I haven't even thought about what I want to talk about. So
Sure. Well,
in the context of
okay, so Ted, take just a seat. This is going to make it easy for me. So the future in politics is there. You'll talk today, and Ted will talk in the future. Okay, who would be interested in doing education and training? I need 2 people that will handle education and training. It's just, again, a conversation. Teo, so you can do education today. Anybody interested in talking education training in the future? Like what's to come? Okay, so Teo, if you could switch seats there, and then if you could go sit where Jeff is at, that would be great. Okay, next one is going to be, Teo's going to sit where you're at. Yeah. And then, yeah. Yep, there you go. And then who is going to do business and finance? I need 2 people for business and finance. At 3:30? Okay, so that's really helpful to know. Ludwig? No? Okay. Business and finance. Okay, anybody else, business and finance? Yeah. Do you want to do future or present? Business and finance. Huh?
I'll do it.
Okay, do you go with the future? Yeah. Okay, so then you would take just a seat. Jeff, you're over here. Cool. Next is worship and philanthropy. Worship and philanthropy. So I don't say religion and faith. It feels like loaded words to me, but I feel like worship, or the act of gathering community and gratitude, is part of that spiritual element. I think innovation is happening in that space. Philanthropy is that's like a faith in action. Anybody interested in talking worship and philanthropy? How innovation is happening in that space? would anybody be interested in talking? So there's three categories. There's that, there's news and media, and then there's art and entertainment. So for, you'll do whatever. News and media, art and entertainment, or worship and philanthropy? Okay, and you want to do today or future? Okay, so you sit where Michael's at. Justice and Michael? Okay, you need to leave too. Go ahead. What do you...
Arts and entertainment.
Okay, so future, arts and entertainment, you're where Michael's at. And hi there. Welcome. Well, you belong here. Glad to have you. Yeah, I believe so. You don't care? Okay. So the next one is news and media. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bundle the worship philanthropy family, that whole middle section. I'm just gonna bundle that as one open dialogue, but I just need to have specific people that I know are the target people for the time allotted. So, two people. You said you're doing art. Justice is art and entertainment. You're art and entertainment. I need two for news and media. So, Michael, you don't care what you do. Mosley, you're good with just news and media. Kinda. Do you have another preference? That is hilarious. I like talking about politics. Did you? We don't know yet. So I mean, we've met, but the rest. So yeah, maybe introduce yourself. We're on break right now, by the way. This is our break.
Need a break.
Yeah. So maybe introduce yourself so we know.
I'm Dave Elliott. I'm an architect from Salinas, California, down in Monterey County. So I'm interested. I've got another company besides my firm that is building tiny houses for the people that can't have homes, and they're being built out of prison, out of Soledad and Folsom prisons. We have an exclusive contract with them to do that. So that was part of one of these options, I think. And I was meeting Ted Haas here. Okay. It's in the white hat. It covers his bald head. Okay.
I believe that we are live right now. And if that's the case, hello, Internet. Thank you for your attention. My name is Ian Utilli, and this is the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Summit. I have some friends here with me, and we just finished up hour and a half conversation about entrepreneurship. Here, in this camera, I'm looking here, and there's a couple cameras to my sides that will get my friends that we're having this open dialogue together. And this is all going to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. And so whatever platform you're on, and if you're on one of the corporate platforms or a personal one, welcome, Peter Garrett. Everybody, the Peter Garrett, capital T, has arrived, the man with the blue shades. Take a seat, my friend. And what's happening is that you may be watching this live. If you are, welcome. I think you'll find it engaging enough to be here the whole time. Or you may be watching the archive. And so we're here at DocuSign's headquarters. So I just want to thank DocuSign as they hear me thank them constantly. I'm very grateful to use the space, to have the beautiful Bay Bridge over my left shoulder. And then also just to use this space. It's a really wonderful place to be at, to cultivate conversations. I've done events of all sorts here. I've done larger scale events, you know, with like a big audience and very structured fireside chats and keynotes. And I've done more open dialogue events, never like this, but similar. And usually I'll be live streaming to all these platforms, and then I have to use a separate phone for Instagram. Hey, Instagram, welcome. So this is scheduled for the opening keynote for innovation inside, just kind of, that's what we're talking, innovation, right? We just finished up entrepreneurship. That was private because sometimes entrepreneurship is so brutal that if you want to be vulnerable about the ground war, the entrepreneurship ground war, then it's maybe not appropriate to always live stream all those things that you'd say. Where innovation, the air war, right? The ideas, not necessarily the action, but the ideas of innovation, a little bit more ethereal, a little bit easier to take the risk of live streaming. And so that's what we're doing. And so what will happen in this time is that I'm going to facilitate a conversation with people. And you'll notice that like one person is primarily talking about a specific topic, whether that be business today or whether that is art and entertainment in the future, whatever that is, you'll find that for several minutes at a time, one person will kind of take the helm and run with that topic. And so that's what today is going to look like. Also, I'm wearing a Gorilla Branders t-shirt. These haven't been in print for a while. We just went back to print. It's been about 4 years. And if you want one, then, do something vain, like, comment, and share this video. But also, why would I want you to like, comment, share all those different metrics? Because I think the content's going to be valuable. I think other people besides you will want to watch this, not just live, but the archive. And so I'm going to have the comments being responded to, and we'll be kind of looking through. And if you would like me to mail you a shirt, then participate online. I don't care where that is, if that's here on Instagram or if that is on any of the other platforms. I'm going to send some of these Gorilla Branders shirts in the mail to you if you are responding. And it's the you don't want my stinky shirt. No, I got a dozen right there, so I can give some of you some of the shirts as well. So I think that's kind of like getting things started, letting you know what's happening. So let me open up right now, and I'm going to stop looking at the camera because even though I'm glad you're here, you are invited while I have a conversation with others. And you'll notice that as we do this thing, nobody's going to be looking at the cameras when they're talking. They're going to be looking at one another because we're trying to have a dialogue about these topics. So I do want to open up about innovation. Why does innovation matter so much, regardless of the sphere of society, right? So we're going to talk about kind of the 7 key industries or things that make our $88 trillion worldwide economy run, right? That get people up in the morning and give them something to do that makes their life meaningful, right? Like these are the different things that people dedicate their time, whether in a career to make money or in a hobby for enjoyment. And so what we're talking about is innovation, and we're going to kind of go through a rhythm. And so what you'll find in this conversation, and for those that are watching, is what you're going to find is that as we talk, we're talking about today and the future. Right? Like, I live in the future because I can't be wrong. It's the best. I can say whatever I want about the future. You don't know if I'm wrong. Justice, he always fact checks me if I talk about the present. This man right here is just a human fact checker. Every time I'm talking, I see him on his phone. And I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Just fact checking you. So I'm not talking about today because I could be fact checked. No, I'm talking about the future. That's my thing. But today does matter, right? Like, what's happening presently today with innovation absolutely is significant, because today is what makes Friday afternoon sad, because you can't wait for Monday morning to go back and attack that thing that you're trying to solve, right? Or that business you're trying to build, or that art that you're trying to create, or that media that you're trying to express, or that whatever that thing is. Even though I'm fascinated with the future, I know that the present matters absolutely, right? It's the thing that kind of keeps the engine running. And so that's kind of the rhythm of our conversation. And so what we're talking about in this conversation, we'll start off with art and entertainment, kind of that whole sphere of creating something that you're a content creator and they're content consumers, and you're creating something for the market. The next one will be news and media. So anything around news and media. I mean, this is news and media, right? Like, we're having a private news and media moment where we're all kind of giving each other the news. Hey, here's what's happening today. And we're trying to you kind of push the media, like, this is what will happen in the future. And online, I'm replacing standard news and media. Like, people may choose to dedicate 90 minutes to watch this experience instead of sit down and watch CNN or Fox or any other alternative that would be pushing out news and media, because they say, hey, with my 90 minutes, I find more value in an independent news media source. Then we'll talk about worship and philanthropy. Not everybody has a spiritual or soul approach to life. But for those that do, and I think it's probably a large percentage of folks, talking about faith or religion seems like maybe not necessarily the right approach. So I like worship and philanthropy because most people like to share gratitude, right? You have a meal and you're like, are you as grateful for this food as I am? Like, I am so grateful. I'm in a heart of worship, of gratitude. Or philanthropy, like, there's no action of faith more significant than taking your money that belongs to you, taking your time that you can sell for money, and saying, I'm giving my money and I'm giving my time to an organization or a cause. That is a tremendous act of faith. Then we'll transition to family and community. Family, blood. Like, we're not family, no matter how much we love each other, right? We're a community. And community, the things that we build that now are becoming more and more decentralized and more significant in our life. The fifth thing is business and finance, followed by education and training, and finally, government and politics. And then I will wrap everything up. So what we're going to experience together, friends, is a dialogue. This is not a monologue. This is a monologue-esque moment for me to set the tone. I'll do something similar at the end to try and conclude all the things that we had talked about. And so that's kind of the essence of what's going on. What I'd like to have everybody do is I'm going to just have the mic passed, and just your name, where you live, and what thing you're focused on, but not like a 2-sentence what you're focused on. Like, I'm Ian. I live in Santa Cruz. I work in San Francisco, Redding, and Puerto Rico. And the thing I'm primarily focused on is my company, attn.live, attn.live. That's me. Andrew, you're up. We're just going to go clockwise. Just name, location, and the thing that's taking most of your time, and then we're going to dive right in. Mic against your chin. That's a sweet spot.
Gotcha. So I'm Jeff. I live in San Jose, and I'm an independent consultant, mostly in the medical device field, and focused a lot on my family these days, though.
My name is Peter, and I live in San Francisco, right around the corner. And my main focus is edge mobile payments.
Dave Elliott. I'm an architect in Salinas, California, down in Monterey County. And my focus now is I have a company that's been building tiny homes for homeless people out of the prisons in Soledad and Folsom prisons.
Hi, I'm Michael Mosley. I live in Santa Cruz and work in the Bay Area and Puerto Rico as well, and my attention is live.
James Custombardis. I live in San Jose, California. I am committed to family, and that's my focus, and relationships.
I'm Ted Hawes. I live in San Jose. I'm committed to family. This is my son here. I'm a social entrepreneur and working with our nonprofit organization, Transform Our World, working all over the globe and helping to work together to transform our world.
I'm Teo Hawes. I live in San Jose. I just graduated high school, and right now I'm focused as like an intern for Union Utility and working for the future.
My name is Jim Degnan. I live in San Francisco, and my focus is, like Ted, transform our world, and that's what I want to do for our city.
Good afternoon. My name is Ludwig Fries. I live in Redwood City, and my focus is on connecting people with solutions.
Ann Pesco. I live in San Francisco. Last time I was here, there was nothing visible because it was November 16th, and it was the filthiest air ever. This is much nicer. My focus is travel. I work in the nonprofit world.
Hey guys, my name is Farhan. I live 2 blocks from here. My focus is running an AI startup that tries to make your conversation smarter.
My name is Justice Earl. I live in Santa Cruz. I'm focused on a hardware and software startup. And
Well, it's now time to begin the conversation. So this first segment is on art and entertainment, and we want to talk about where is innovation impacting art and entertainment right now. So Andrew, why don't you jump in and just kind of share some thoughts with us as you think about the whole sphere of art and entertainment, how innovation is impacting it when it comes to like today.
So personally, I want to talk about entertainment in a sense from, for me, I'm entertained from multiple different senses, through sight, hearing, touch. Music is something that's always moved me in a sense. So from the moment I wake up, when I'm in the shower sometimes, I'll play some music. When I'm driving, when I'm in the gym, I'll play some music. It's entertainment. It moves me, right? It moves me forward. Makes me feel better about what I'm doing in the moment. And some of us play different kinds of music in the gym, in the shower, while we're driving, right? Some of us listen to different kinds of energy. We pick up different connections, different experiences. And that's what I think entertainment means today in our society. I think our society is looking to grab energy from people, from experiences, and music has grown through a vast majority of genres. And, you see people gravitate towards certain genres for different experiences, and you see people gravitate towards certain experiences in order to achieve certain genres, vice versa. So I see our world kind of connecting through multiple ways, multiple avenues through entertainment. And it only leads us to approach new and better horizons for the future in terms of entertainment.
Thanks for sharing. Justice, let's take it to the future. I'm a futurist, so I actually can fact check you. Thank you. Thank you. Innovation in art and entertainment, like let's take it 10 years out or whatever you want, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how is innovation going to impact entertainment, especially for those that are the most creative and courageous, like yourself.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think that it's actually going, I think innovation and technology is actually going to drop the barrier to being courageous. I think historically, to jump into something, art and entertainment, you're forced to put yourself out there, and you're also forced to become a business person in a sense that you, in order to focus on that thing full time, you have to make a living from it. In order to make a living from it, you have to get an audience. In order to get an audience, you have to put yourself out there. And so there's all these elements of barrier to dedicating your life full time to arts and entertainment, where is now through technology, you have the ability to become a world legend from your bedroom, literally. It's happened over and over and over. You know, Owl City 10 years ago, Kygo recently. You know, Kygo was, the documentary was pulled out of his bedroom by his audience, basically. He's getting just millions and millions of streams just because he loved playing music and put it online. So the barrier is getting lower and lower, and technology is helping people build that audience. And so I think there's a very high potential to get some of the rawest, most best art that we're going to see created, because there's that fear taken away. You have the complete freedom of anonymity, sitting in your bedroom, creating something just that comes from the deepest place of your soul, and then you're able to just put it on a platform and have it explode. We're seeing that with, we saw that with Billie Eilish just recently. She's the youngest artist to ever hit 1 billion streams. She's 18 years old, and she was just creating music in her bedroom with her brother at 15 years old. So these things are just happening at a greater and greater accelerated rate, and technology is helping people doing this, lowering the barrier. The other thing, you know, getting futuristic that we're seeing is, it's interesting to see that content used to be super highly polished. And, you know, the last couple decades, it's become reality TV shows. And now we follow people in 15-second bites on Instagram. It's so personalized. It's getting down to these real moments in our life. And I think through different ways of engaging with technology, right now I'm developing the Snap Ring. So it's a ring on your finger that enables you to control your different devices. It's become a much more natural interface. It's going to help you control. You know, we're going to start seeing stuff like that with other sort of natural interface devices where you have different sensors on your hands and your bodies. It's going to enable you to create anything that you want. You know, being able to create a video. We're going to be able to create video, and there's going to be editing software that just knows basically how you operate, and it's going to be able to edit software for you. Technology is going to be able to do all of these things, lowering, again, the barrier to creation, not just to putting your content out there, but also to creating that content. And then one of my favorite movies is Strange Days. It was kind of a flop when it came out, but it became a cult classic, where the premise of the movie was you put these diodes on your head and you would go and do something insane, and then you would transfer the chip to the next person, and they put the diodes on their head, and they would literally live the experience, the endorphins and the rush and the actual visualization of what the other person experienced would be transferred to you, and it was the new drug of the future. And we're, you know, somebody famous said, you know, that the future is already here. It's just not very widely distributed. That's probably here somewhere, that experience, and we're probably going to be experiencing that in the next 5 to 10 years.
I love that. You know, I just watched Minority Report last week, and 17 years ago, Tom Cruise made that movie. And, like, he walks in his house 10 minutes in the movie. He goes, "I'm home." All these things happen, like Alexa is supposed to do today. And he's talking to his house while he's in the house. And like all these things that Google Assistant and Microsoft Cortana, you know, and Apple Siri and Samsung Bixby are trying to accomplish still, like was kind of showcased 17 years ago. The thing when we talk about the future that I want to express is that we manifest what we believe is possible, right? And so if we believe in Black Mirror and Terminator and Alita and Blade Runner and Electric Dreams, if we believe in the dystopic potential, then we will either shy away or create that, unfortunately. But if we believe in a Jetsons future, something that was going to be incredible and like life-giving and better for everybody, then we can manifest that as well. It's why it's important to talk about the future.
Black Panther.
Black Panther, dude, I want.
Better example than the Jetsons.
I want Black Panther to be real.
We all want Black Panther to be real.
We're going to talk about news and media. And so for news and media, as far as innovation goes, I think the innovation is in decentralizing news and media. So I think one thing that I'd like to know from all of you is, like, what are you turning to when it comes to news and media today? I'd love to just have you guys kind of say, like, hey, you know, I'm listening to talk radio, or I'm only Twitter. I have a special Twitter algorithm that I've kind of customized. Like, what are you doing to absorb either written, audio, podcast, whatnot, visual, news, and media today? Like, what is it? And please don't share like 30 seconds or some sort of long thing of what it is. I just want to kind of know, like, get the pulse of the room. So, Ted, what are you using for news and media? And let's pass the mic down to Ted. What are you using for news and media?
I use word of mouth. I follow basketball by letting Teo follow it and talking to him. I follow news by talking to people. And then I go research stories that I'm interested in because they talk to me about it.
Teo, what if you want to find out something today, what's the first thing that you turn to find out information?
I do use some of the traditional media like sources, but I also try to use like individual websites like Quora or Medium to like kind of like fact check against that and see other perspectives, since like one of the things that I've always thought is most important is hearing 2 sides or 3 sides or 4 sides to a story. And so not just seeing it from one angle, but like seeing it from different perspectives. So yeah, Quora, the popular news sites basically.
Yeah. Peter, what do you use for news? Jeff, grab the mic for Peter. What are you using to learn stuff? I mean, what you're doing is globally, you're leading global innovation in the finance world, and you have been on that path for quite some time. News and information is vital for you.
Sure.
So where do you turn today?
Yeah, I mean, specifically if we're talking about fintech, you know, I have all kinds of RSS feeds and things that come in and pop up, you know, every day, like Payments Magazine and you know, different things from Wired or Forbes. So I'm constantly, you know, scanning every morning. I'm probably, you know, getting 20 to 30 little bites that I'll go check out if something catches my eye. But you know, definitely I stay away from most of the mainstream news. But I do like what I'm sorry, what's your name? Teo. I appreciate what he said, because I do a similar thing every once in a while. I'll try to get different viewpoints from different angles, just because, you know, everyone's got a spin to what they're saying. So yeah.
How about you, Dave? And put the mic right next to your chin for the amazing, right next to your, for the amazing media people out there. So, what do you turn to for news and media to get information today?
You know, I used to be into television, radio, and you know, and the newspapers. None of that's accurate anymore. It's not fast enough. So I'm pretty much getting feedback on computers, and mostly what other friends and stuff are bringing to my attention that I would be interested in. And I'm really not a big media buff. However, I was on TV about 2 hours ago at the Planning Commission meeting, and you know, the people that get up there, they're wanting to show off. They come to a meeting and complain about my project because, you know, they're on the screen, you know, and it's some of that's just, you know, not appropriate, you know, to want to be that kind of person.
Ludwig, I'd like to hear, what do you turn into when it comes to news and media today?
Yeah, but I turn to educate myself what's going on in the world. I go online. On my phone, I check a German online magazine, Der Spiegel. Then I listen to BBC. I read the Washington Post, the New York Times. I really love TED Talks. I have found out that TED Talks really expands my horizon. And so my news, I get my news from my phone.
That's a great response. I get my news from my phone. You know, absolutely. Anybody else want to share how they're absorbing news today? Because I want to transition to the future. Yeah, please go ahead.
You know, I'm more interested in the viewpoints that I have, and so I watch the news stuff that tailors to me specifically. I don't even know the last time I watched like a nightly newscast.
Yep.
I just go to the websites that specifically tailor to my belief system, and that's what I consume. So
it's good. I want to transition to the future of innovation in news and media. So now that we've kind of got the pulse, like, how do you want to absorb news and media when your interface is a voice device? So I want you to project 10 years out. You don't type with your fingers. You don't type with your thumbs. You talk to some operating system. It talks back. You have a great relationship with technology, maybe not as intimate as you see with Joaquin Phoenix and her, but you have a powerful relationship where you feel understood and you feel communicated to. And you have an extra bonus of augmented reality. Now that might be on your glasses, that there's stuff that's over your glasses, or contact lenses, or some sort of screen of some sort, or projection. But in the future, how do you want to see innovation happen with absorbing or creating news and media? Like, how do you want to get the word out 10 years from now? How do you want to absorb information 10 years from now? So whoever wants to, go ahead.
So I'll jump in and bite, because that's sort of what we were trying to build at Smooth. The defining question that we had as a company was, what would a group chat with legends sound like, right? So that's collecting information, collecting advice from the greats. I'm talking, put Socrates in the same chat as Kanye West. What would happen, and what would be, what provocative things would you learn and you absorb from that stream alone? The next layer we sort of added was that the best news, the best advice that's relevant to you actually comes from your friends, right? So that's, you're talking about a smart AI. You already have a smart AI. Those are your friends. They know you the best. When they find a clip or something that's relevant to your business or to your life, they'll send it to you. So I think that's kind of where I see a voice AI taking over. Would be, we have Siri, we have Alexa. These are great things. I mean, I can tell Alexa turn off the lights, but I can't have a conversation with Alexa, right? I can't say, hey Alexa, how's it going? Or if I tell Alexa, hey, there's a fire, she'll call 911 instead of thinking it's a joke, right? So those are the kind of things. How do you build a personality and a assistant that understands contextual needs, but also interpersonal needs, and becomes more of your friend, like Jarvis from Iron Man, than sort of like a Tron type AI that's like only taking one-way information and one-way commands. Right. I think that's the future.
For news and media right now, for me, what I've been using is I have different stuff showing up on my LinkedIn feed compared to my Twitter feed, compared to my Facebook feed, and my Instagram's not really useful for that. But there's like specific, like today, now, updates. And I found that if I give it like 90 seconds each, like I'll be like, okay, there's the one article I'm actually wanting to dive deep in. It happens to be on Twitter today or LinkedIn. So like that's interesting. I've been thinking about in the future, what will we not opt out of? So think about innovation with news and media, and understand that because of innovation, you literally are going to have an option for Amber Alert to go on your glasses, for earthquake within this radius to go on your a contact lens, for certain people at people in your company that you work with, like their most important updates, they're either marked urgent or marked life-changing, right? And like, what is it that you will not opt out of in the future when it's going to be as disruptive as a thing that shows up on your eye? Because it's one thing for my phone to buzz. It's a whole nother ball game when it's on my contact lens. And the likelihood of us opting in on an hourly, daily, or weekly basis is super low for almost everything. So one thing I'm wondering when it comes to that, innovation is probably real, right? 5 years, 55 years, at some point that's real. What is it as human beings that you'd be like, honestly, like my parents, my kids, that's the only thing I will not opt out of, or my community of some sort. So I'm interested, just a couple people pop off really quick. I would never opt out of something because we're going to go to the next topic in just a moment. Go ahead.
I think what we're starting to see, every business, the golden chalice of the business is to find something exactly what you're saying. Everybody wants that. You know, that's the magic code that everybody's trying to crack right now. Is what are you going to pay attention to that that you love engaging with? And I think that data analytics and all the information that we're voluntarily giving, all these social media channels, the data analytics is getting so targeted that we actually get ads, we get media, we get advertised to in a way that we actually appreciate. Oh, these are products that we care about. These are products that we want to spend money instead of these banner ads and click-through ads and spammy ads that we just hate and annoy us and avoid. And going into news and media, I think that environment with news and media is going to be super custom tailored to our attention as well, to the things that we actually care about, that we're going to actually want to engage in. And you mentioned kind of this dystopic future. I think the dystopic future is really important to also think about, because we need to mitigate the risk of those potentials, right? So if you can imagine it for good or for bad, then it means that it can come true. And so thinking about what negative can happen, that means that that's a possibility, and we need to hedge against that possibility. So I think one of the challenges that we get into with news and media and this hyper-focused, hyper-targeted things that just relate to us, just relate to our world, the challenge is it becomes myopic. It becomes all about our perspective, and we only look at things that agree with us. And I think that makes people who are extremely limited, and they lack empathy in being able to relate to somebody else's perspective. So that's a dire challenge to what it means to be human and get along on this planet. That's only going to escalate with more and more billions of people. And I think that one of the things that I want to see in the future innovation of news and media is like what Teo was suggesting. Teo's going out of his way to look for alternate, perspectives, and that's something that I applaud, greatly, because a lot of people don't do that. I think that the news media of the future is going to be much more integrated in different people's perspectives rather than these siloed perspectives, and they're going to dish that in a way that's going to be engaging and something that you want to see other people's perspective. At least that's a hope of mine.
Yeah. Since you're in the nonprofit space, we're transitioning now to innovation today in the sphere of worship and philanthropy. And I use that in this faith element because worship is kind of gathering around a belief, and philanthropy is kind of giving out of a belief. So since you're in the nonprofit space, can you talk to us, like, your thoughts on innovation in the nonprofit world right now? Like, what innovative things are you excited about or longing to see developed right now today?
Gee, that's tough. I think nonprofits are...
And the microphone.
I think nonprofits are learning to behave more like for-profit corporations these days. For example, the organizations I've been involved with have gotten help from business schools and MBA grads in marketing, in business practices, budgeting. So I suppose that's the wave of the future, that we're going to behave more like for-profit businesses.
Yeah. Is there any type of innovation that you'd like to see created today that is not currently available that would help you with what you do in the nonprofit space? Is there a technology or a tool or a service or a product or any sort of thing like, if this existed, I would do more good in what I do in this kind of world that has a lot to do with philanthropy, right? People choosing to give.
I think get the message out to a broader audience, however that happens, online, any type of media.
Yeah. And why don't you share quickly, and then I'm going to go to Michael. So let's hand the microphone to Michael for the future.
Yeah. So in 2007, there's a man named Mohammed Yusuf. He won the Nobel Prize for Economics for making microloans in Bangladesh, right? And if you think about it, what is a microloan? Microloan is just a realignment of incentives to give people a push and a start so they can get their entrepreneurial spirit started. I think the future of nonprofits, and not any company trying to change behaviors is microtransactions, right? Being able to, like, think about just Twitter, right? People tweet nonsense all the time. There's no sort of skin in the game when you say something online anymore. Versus in real life, if you come and talk trash to someone, they can punch you, they can push you, whatever, right? They can sue you. Online, where it's all anonymous, there's no sort of skin in the game for that. There needs to be, incentives need to be realigned where it pays to cost something to say, right? And I think that is the root problem for not just nonprofits, but also for-profit businesses, where there's so much noise being created because it's free to say stuff, that if there's a microtransaction associated with sending someone of worth something, right, some information, some newsletter, some piece of like requesting a donation or whatever, then people will opt in for that. As you said, that we've hit information saturation, right? People are being bombarded by notifications 24 hours a day. In fact, I've disabled all notifications on my phone. Even when my mom calls, she gets upset. I'm like, no, if I keep it on, people will just hound me all day. Won't get any real work done. So I think that's the future of opt-in microtransactions that can be executed between people to send and do stuff. To incentivize, make sure that the incentive is the money, because people will follow that.
Michael, talk with us about innovation in the whole sphere of worship, philanthropy. You have a nonprofit organization you have for a long time. You have gone in and out of different levels of effort when it comes to things of the soul, things of the spirit, things of giving and of generosity and of sacrifice. And so tell us, because I'm very interested, what are you hopeful for? What do you want innovators to create in a decade? You know, like, what are you hopeful for to have happen that will facilitate greater impact?
Yeah, I just sense a lot of words like worship and philanthropy being redefined, is what I see. You know, what I'd love to see for the future is I'd love to see awareness of the worship that goes on, accountability for worship, if you will, a reflection of what you do worship being seen in your life, and actually measuring the impact of that thing that you're worshiping. I don't think that we're accountable to the things that we put our attention to. You know, I think that it's like with news and media, as we begin to create filters, I shut it all off, because I don't like the impact of it. The information, weighing the information against the impact is not worth it to me. And so I think that a lot of times we put our attention towards things that we don't really truly know the impact. And so really understanding, we want to understand the impact of our efforts a lot, but do we understand the impact of our attention and our worship? And so I think blockchain is going to help us with that. I mean, we're fairly legalistic in our hearts about wanting to see the output of the dollar that we put towards things. But rarely do you see people truly engaging with people that are working in philanthropy on a relational level, face to face. And that truly is radically empowering, and it takes more time and energy to do that. So that's what I'd love to see, is that I don't know. I just think that there's the amount of energy and love and interaction that goes to state for a sports team versus a check that you write for $50,000 to something. It's like, well, where is it? Just seems to be backwards for me, So, yeah.
Does anybody else have, probably one person, does somebody have thoughts on this notion of worship and philanthropy in the future, like where things are going to lead? Ted, you've been a part of a international nonprofit organization, oversees 3.6 or impacts 3.6 million people from the metrics that we understand, to the 3,000 leaders that are kind of part of the tribe. Like, what is the great innovations that you want to see Teo's kids using, like your grandkids? What type of innovations do you want to see available to them in this sphere of faith? And then we'll transition over to conversation around family and community.
What we see happen, a lot of what Michael touched on, what we see happen, and we want to see more of it, is democratization. You know, people want to get involved. I love this, like redefining terms like worship, like, and I love the way you just, what are we focusing our attention on? That's like, what am I focusing my attention on? I can say I worship something else, but what am I really focusing? And I see more and more like our labor being worship, people wanting to get meaning out of it. I see like business entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship are now becoming really the same thing. And now, like guys like you, are you an entrepreneur or a social entrepreneur? Yeah, because we want to make the world better. I see more and more like that. And I see people wanting to get involved, like, and wanting to get involved now. Like the Bill Gates model was make a whole lot of money being evil and now repent and give it all back. I mean, I'm joking. I'm picking on him because he's low-hanging fruit. But now it's like, no, I want it to be embedded. And this whole idea of microtransactions, empowering that, and micro or macro. I mean, like when we have big donors, we don't want a paycheck. We want them because what they bring with, I mean, we want their money. That helps. I mean, you don't diminish that. But they bring so much more in their wisdom. And we've done a good job at that, engaging them. But I love the idea that now we can, it all be aligned, and that the rich and the poor both bring something to the table of so much value. And I see more and more of that.
You know, I wonder if there's anything that gets the pass for worship like family. So we're obviously transitioning to family. That was my transition. Like, you don't get a pass for worshiping business. You don't get a pass for worshiping drugs. A lot of people, you don't even get a pass for worshiping God. It's like, even that is like kind of like, whoa, 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 whoa. Your worship of a creator impedes on my belief that I don't know what I believe. But family, like, nobody's going to say like, hey, dude, looks to me like you worship your kids. Looks to me like your whole entire life is wrapped around creating something that is, you're going to prop them up forever? You're ever going to let them actually be a human? You know, or, hey, it looks to me like you worship your parents. You know, you check in with mom about everything. You always got to turn to just daddy for advice. Nobody's going to say that stuff because in our culture, and in most cultures, as it, in a sense it should be, family is so honored with our mouth. But I'm not so sure that always the actions are right. And so I'm very interested in innovation when it comes to family, biological, and community, those that we have a family essence with by choice. And so in talking about family, right, like where's innovation at with family today? I've seen such a drastic shift in family. I was watching comedians in cars getting coffee, and it was Jerry Seinfeld with Alec Baldwin. And so they're driving around, and they're funny. You know, they're both funny people, and they were being funny together, and it was enjoyable. And so they got my undivided attention. You know, I'm watching the screen and everything, not even touching my phone. And Jerry goes, you know, we were the first generation to ever have a childhood. And Alec's like, yeah, I see what you're saying there. He's like, honestly, our parents, our grandparents, and every ancestor prior to us never had what we define today as a, you know, infant, adolescent, teenager, childhood, broken down into spheres of ways of being educated, ways of doing sports, ways of eating, ways like, and there's a rhythm and a method and it's a dance, and it's like, this is what we do and this is how we do it for our children. He's like, our parents, you know, the industrial age generation did it for us, the baby boomers, and honestly, he goes, it was the first time ever, and we went varsity. Like, we were like, oh, how good can it be to be a kid? And they didn't go further. It was just kind of like, you noticed that? I noticed that. You want to make jokes about it? Not really. Not really. No, I'm kind of guilty of giving my kid a 7th place trophy too. You know, and so that is kind of an interesting element today for family and community, is that what we're doing with family and what we're doing with community has never, ever, ever, ever been done in the history of mankind. Never before can you go onto something like a social media site or pull up something like a WhatsApp, Discord, Telegram group and communicate to a community or to a family in the way that we can today. You've never been able to be heard, you've never been able to be communicated to by the tribe or tribes that you're running with. So innovation today has completely transformed family. The question that I'm interested in is, what about innovation in the future? Like, what does innovation look like in the future of family and community? And I think the question that I want to ask you, and I'd love for more people than less people to talk on this one, because it's really just like super personal, and you're not right, you just have an opinion. Like, I'm not right, I just have an opinion. Like, what would you like to see innovation do that would allow the ways that we're communicating and being in community change? Like, what are you longing for that does not yet exist? So maybe somebody, you can start quickly, and then, Teo, if you want to jump in, and we can kind of pass the mic around. I just would like to know, what would you like to see innovation in terms of impacting families in the future?
I think the core thing is first of all understanding that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Like, the genuine standard family model of people caring for each other and like generations living together, I think America is one of the first places that like kind of brought that to the world. I think that's one of America's most underrated exports, because you see, like, and the irony is that people talk about the divorce rates being high. That's actually not true. If you look at the last 10 years, it's been steadily going down. The innovation that I'd like to see is, yes, we focus so much on communication of like texting and having group chats, whatever, but how do you really keep someone involved in a day, in your day, and keep them feeling a part of your life constantly? I would love to see something that reminded me of like thoughtful gestures that I could do for my family, and not in like an automata like bot kind of way, like genuine things that says, oh hey, your mom is actually at this store and there's like a coupon for that or whatever, send it to her real quick, right? There's stuff that for them is a huge deal, and you may never even have thought of that, because even though you think you know them so well, all this information on the internet, put that as another layer on their life, you can get some pretty interesting things to happen and make their day better.
Yep.
When I look back and think about interacting with things that have really impacted me about things that my kids have done.
Yeah.
We save these pieces of paper that have crayon writings on them of their expression in our file, in our firebox, and we put these things away so that we can remember what they expressed when we weren't typically with them. And I tell you, I've learned more about my kids, about my daughter, watching her interact with somebody else on film when they're just joking around, and really getting to see and hear her say things that I've never. I'm like, she's super smart. Like, I mean, like, we all say our kids are smart, but when you hear them, and then my son doing the same thing, being creative and actually orchestrating and managing groups of guys to accomplish a task through gaming. I mean, these are things that, and what about the really smart things that I say that they don't get to hear? I mean, it just goes around. So what I'd love to see is actually, like what's coming, what we're doing, and that's this audio logging. It's this ability to record and to file the things that we say and record ourselves. And how offensive is it to this culture for the idea of being live all the time? That's offensive. I mean, it's like, whoa, I'm not going to show you that. It's coming. It's here. It's called blockchain. It's going to happen. I mean, you're going to be revealed. Everything of who you are, every action you do, is going to be, that's going to assimilate to attribute value or to represent value in who you are. So it's coming. It's here. And so it's like, why not step into that? Because I would love to see that in the future for family.
Yeah.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
So that's, as you said, blockchain, right? It's like the evolution and the history and record of everything. The importance of that would be for my kids to see, okay, your dad was like this guy in his teens, this guy as he grew up, got out of college, this guy when he got his first job. I got to see that really late for my parents, right? Like breaking that fourth wall that, oh, these guys were humans too. They also made mistakes. They also made dumb decisions that now have consequences in my life, even 20 years on, right? So, but I didn't really see that till, I went in their room one day and they had a bag hidden under the bed, and I was like, what is all this, like really old pictures, like letters that they've written to each other when they used to live. Like, I didn't even know my dad used to live in Tokyo. Like, he had this whole life, right, that I didn't realize existed. I think there needs to be innovation of making, there's a generation gap that kind of needs to be bridged from both ends that need to realize that neither is smarter than the other, and both are human and living in a strange time together. I think if we can create that bridge either through an app or a platform to let that discussion happen, I think that's going to be real innovation and spread real love and affection between generations.
We're going to switch over to talking about business. I think, Jeff, I'd like to have you share a bit about your thoughts on innovation in business today. I'll transition to that from family and just saying my strongest motivation for live streaming the way that I do. Like, I'm live streaming on dozens of different channels for an hour and a half, so I'll live stream like 100 hours of content today. It's basically decentralizing this 90-minute experience because I'm live streaming across Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram on multiple channels. And I do this constantly at my events, and I even do it like in my car. I have 4 places for my phones, and I have 3 phones, and I basically live stream things constantly. My strongest motivation is the legacy factor of it. Like, I'm really not concerned how many people are watching me live. Now, if 10,000 people were watching us live, then I would be concerned. Then I'd be like, okay, like, I probably would change some things, but I'm not super concerned. I'm just thinking, like, what is going to happen with the archive this week, this month? But really, like, you know, your dad lived in Tokyo. Like, my ancestor, Moraga, he founded the Presidio in San Francisco. He founded the city of San Jose. I know very little about Moraga. But if Moraga had a way to live stream his life, and I could see behind the scenes how he became friends with the Native Americans in a way that they did a Pope's procession when he was gone, and he's one of the only Spanish generals that was loved by the locals. Like, if I could figure out how he landed here and somehow made his way super far south, you know, down to San Jose and decide, like, why'd he call it Guadalupe de San Jose? Like, well, I don't know any of these things. I have so many questions, right? I mean, he's like the first great entrepreneur of the Silicon Valley. So I think about, like, okay, maybe not as many people are watching live as a celebrity would have. Maybe not that many people will watch the archive because, you know, for whatever reasons, people don't like the content as much as others, or I'm not advertising, whatever it is. But for sure, this experience will live on across a decentralized group of servers, in essence, especially as time goes on. And that's a lot of what I think about when it comes to innovation. Like, this $1 million device that I paid $1,000 for and pay a couple $100 a month for almost unlimited bandwidth, like, I can almost do anything with this. So to me, innovation today in business and family is tied to that hugely. But Jeff, again, back to you. Can you just share, what are you seeing in innovation today in business and finance? What would you like to see that you're not currently seeing right now?
Yeah, I think I've had the good fortune in my career of working for a couple of Fortune 100 companies and then also doing a startup and working for some smaller firms. And I think of innovation, both internal innovation as well as external, and the impact, bidirectional impact of innovation. Internally, what I saw was every small company was trying to be big. We want to grow, we got to grow to a liquidity event, to some revenue stream, whatever it is. And every large company was saying, we need to be innovative. We've got to be flexible. How do we maintain that? And both of them often failed. And so I think it's interesting to think about the term innovation and how it is viewed from those two perspectives at least. So that's the idea of internal, and that's more about our products and services and how we innovate. The other piece that I was thinking about was the impact of innovations on business. You just mentioned your $1 million device, which I'm assuming you refer to your iPhone. And the impact of mobile on business is, I think, at the tip of the iceberg, but is an enormous event. We're sitting here in DocuSign's building in the shadow of Salesforce to talk about innovation and the impact on business from the outside in is just huge. And then we just concluded a discussion about innovation in family. And to me, one of the things that came up for me was what I've seen in my lifetime is my siblings are all scattered. And families aren't living in the same place and being local as they used to as much. But the promise of being able to work remotely is not there yet. And so, frankly, we're sitting here in San Francisco and in the Silicon Valley Bay, And what I see is it is so important in this industry to be here, which is ironic, I think, in a way, because we say we enable remote work. And now I have parents who are in their 80s and who are in that phase where they're still fortunately reasonably healthy and alive. But, you know, there are times in your life where you want to be with family, but you may have established business connections and a career elsewhere, and it's hard to separate those two and focus again on family. And I think the ability to have that innovation where it truly is capable for you to work remotely and be with family would be a game changer in that space. So I think that's the interconnectivity that came to mind as well.
Can you hand the mic to Peter? It's said that if you want to know the future, study the past. And so when I think a lot of wonderful things about you, Peter. Everybody, Peter Garrett, he's one of my favorite people. And, you know, you came up with the patent, which is now, maybe you could explain it, but before the iPhone ever came out, you patented what is now the Edge card. And so when I look at your past, Mike, not only have you done several patents that have been revolutionary, but that specifically, I'm like, okay, when I want to think about who can have a pulse on the business and financial world for innovation in the future, probably the guy that's had the pulse during the past. So I'd love for you to focus primarily on, like, what do you think is going to happen in the future for innovation when it comes to business and finance? I think that's really what I'm interested in, is for you to be able to share a moment, because you're right in the thick of transforming things, you know.
Well, going back to actually what Jeff said, I think going back to the term innovation, right? There's another term, open innovation. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but it was from Henry Chesborough over at Haas School of Business in Berkeley. And I started following him 15 years ago. And you know, he was talking about, he wasn't using the same vernacular and same terms, but he really saw this sharing of information and sharing of capital, micro lending and crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. I think that even though we feel like that's kind of, you know, very present now in our lives, I think that still has a long way to go to continue to kind of lower the barrier to entry for you know, smaller entrepreneurs who want to jump in and get into business, because it's exactly what you said. Big corporations had, for the longest time, and they still do, they still have innovation problems, right? Because of bureaucracy and all these other issues and all the red tape involved. So I think in finance, you're finding the same thing. You're having like all these digital banks that are starting up, right, that are now challenging the status quo, which is phenomenal. I didn't see that coming when I invented the patent. And the patent he's referring to was is one of the first mobile wallet patents. So I definitely saw that movement happening. I knew it was all going mobile. But I think the trend for big companies to look at smaller operations and look for that innovation, and know that, you know, in the past they would just steamroll over you and you'd have to go to a lawsuit, you'd have to battle it out. And now I see a lot of true good faith, you know, from big corporations reaching down and helping pull up, you know, other companies. So. And
can you just share briefly other patents that you've done? The USB flash drive, the backlit keyboard.
Sure. I had
stuff that
one of the first retractable flash drive. That was not a big, you know, that wasn't rocket science, but it was a good one. I also did contemplated the first AirPods. So that was another patent I did. I sold that one way too early. I was, you know, it's the kind of the blessing and the curse of intellectual property is you have to be, you know, 5 years ahead, right, when you're filing, or longer, to really create something of value. But at the same time, if you go to build that thing you've created, sometimes the cost is it's too much. So.
And how about what else are you looking toward in the future? Like, where does innovation around IP? Because I mean, IP has so much to do with business and finance. Sure. Where does IP fall in the future?
Well,
like,
I mean,
how are you seeing this play out for, you know, a young guy like Teo? You know, he's 16 today, just graduated high school. Right. Like, what's going to be like in his world when he's 25, 30 years old?
Oof. IP is first of all, it's in some ways it's a part of the currency of the new economy, right? Because if you look at corporate S&P 500, well over 85% of it is strictly intellectual property. Now that's going to be trademarks and other things too, but IP I think has a very important role to play in carving out an asset, and it will continue to become more of an asset class. So, you know, the one concern I have is AI. Because at some point, AI will invent faster than any human being can. And who owns that intellectual property? The creator of the AI? Is it public? Is it, you know, so there's some interesting, so I do have some concerns around that.
Well, I'm glad that people are concerned because we need to mitigate the risk of what could happen. We're on the clock. I'm tracking your clock, and I know right now I got a banner underneath me, and it says education and apprenticeship. So what does it look like? Innovation for education and apprenticeship today. What does that look like? I'd love to just talk about today and the future, and of course, you know, you guys can leave some space for other people to pipe in as well. Before you hand the mic off, do you have any thoughts on education today in terms of innovation, education and apprenticeship? And you can hand the mic down to those guys.
I do, actually. Being a college dropout, starting a company, going through a new type of schooling system. Some of you have heard it, Lambda School, a couple years back. You know, all those things sort of made me realize and have impacted the way I started my company and the way I run my company. So I think a lot of us, like, the bedrock of sort of Western society has been public education for so long, right? But what's happened at the other end where they end up in the workforce is that workforce and the requirements for that workforce have changed so fast, right? Manufacturing got completely shut out, and we moved to a tech-heavy sector. I don't think that those public schools and the universities that they feed into are ready, or even preparing students that are ready for what's to come. The AI innovation, where, you know, he's talking about patents being like overshot, like patent offices are already killed because people are using more and more technology to generate other technology, right? We've become the creators of our own fate. As far as who's going to patent AI, I have no idea, because that'd be like, if it's a real AI, like a general intelligence, it's going to be its own person. Right.
See, for me, the patents AI creates is going to be very, very compelling. Why don't you hand it down to Teo? Teo, you just graduated high school. You're 16, and you've been working with your dad for a long time. You've helped me with different projects. I enjoy, you know, having your youthfulness and your you bring a lot to the table. It's fun, and so you're very fresh into the school arena, right? And thinking through, like, how do you get apprenticeship? Like, why spend time with me instead of going to community college? Why spend time with, you know, your dad and his other buddies that are business guys instead of going to work in a sandwich shop? So talk to me a bit about, how do you see innovation right now in all things education and apprenticeship?
Okay, well, I think before addressing like the apprenticeship part, first I have to address how I'm able to like go to so many events and like so many like places. And like one thing that I think isn't really brought up enough in addressing like the future of like schools, the future of like education, is the power of homeschooling. I've been homeschooled my entire like life, basically, my entire school like career, basically. And so homeschooling has really helped me, and that has allowed me the freedom to move and interact with business people in like situations like without the 9-to-5 schedule or whatever schedule of like school, or 9-to-3 schedule of school. I get to have these like, I don't have set hours, so I can just go travel all around the Bay. I can meet people, nonprofits who are like trying to change the world. I can meet people who are like addressing like the next like big need in like all like kinds of like areas. I can like meet the next big innovator. I can meet the next big like business person. And so yeah, I just think that like homeschooling is it's going to be a really powerful part of the next like future. Like the future of school is going to be in homeschooling.
So I'm a father of 7 children, and they all were homeschooled in our home by their mother, who was just a fantastic teacher. And the focus on the education was problem solving, not the 3 R's. Some of our kids were weak in reading. We didn't worry about that. So they caught up. They had to be interested in something, and they had to be able to problem solve and think about things. Think about how you're going to do this. And that's where education is kind of at a lull right now. So now one of my sons he went and taught in Korea for 7 years, and it was a terrible system over there. He came back here, says, I want to make a difference, so he's teaching in a middle school right now, and invited me to come to share my life and how to be an architect. So I said, do you realize that architecture is one of the few professions you don't have to have a college degree to become an architect? You can just do an internship. And I'm not against college degrees. All my kids have college degrees, but it's innovation is problem solving, and if we can focus on problem solving, then that's the issue.
I'm glad that you brought up homeschool, Teo. That was really, really good, because homeschool is just a anarchist type way of dealing with education for young people, and I love me some anarchy. Let's talk about the future of innovation in education and apprenticeship.
Well, there's basically there's higher education and then there's the lower education. But talking about homeschooling, the future of education is going to be tailor-made to the individual. It's no longer going to be the cooker-cutter where the teacher is up there teaching the same thing when everyone has different learning styles. What's going to happen is people are going to learn what the learning style they have is, and it's going to be tailor-made to them. But the upper education is not going to be that way. Everything's going to be recorded, and they're going to just be able to consume whatever level they're at that moment. But the cookie cutter where you're going to be just hearing the teacher say this, that's going to be over, because it's going to be more like, how do you learn? Are you tactile, or are you a visual learner? And it's going to be very tailor-made to what you're doing, and then they're going to be taking the tests and finding out what you're missing, and they'll go for that style so you'll actually get it. Because if you're a tactile learner and they're trying to teach you in a different method, you just won't get it. I had dyslexia, so I know firsthand. I was very blessed that I had people that actually tailor-made the education for me. But I see that it's you can do that in the future now, just because there's so much automation.
Ian, can I?
Yes, please. You want to talk about education for a moment before we transition to our final topic of government and politics?
Yeah, just for a second, I want to give a shameless plug to my alma mater, Purdue University,
Yep.
because I think that the president of Purdue right now is a guy named Mitch Daniels, who was the governor of Indiana, and who has come in and really shifted the talk and I think the game in higher education right now, at least for the time being, around value. And the acquisition of Kaplan and turning into Purdue Global and things like that, I think is pretty visionary. And I think one of the things that came up for me with my kids going to school was looking at the value equation, and just saying, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. Oh yeah, you go to college, you get a degree because that's how you get a good job, do whatever. But when the dollars start to get to a certain point, you have to start thinking about, wait a minute, what's my ROI on that return, right? And what's my kid's ROI on that? And so I think that's the immediate future, is challenging the value. And I think whether the modality is online education or at-home education or being live, and I think there is a good argument that people need to get together, particularly in the field I've been in, which is life sciences. It's hard to learn life sciences in a laboratory setting if you're not together doing that. But I think there are multiple modalities that will come into play, but I think the question that's really being addressed right now is, what's the value of that education, right?
Any final thoughts on education before we turn our attention to our final topic, which is government and politics?
Homework sucks. Homework should be destroyed. Homework should be legal.
Homework should be illegal.
There should be a new amendment in our constitution that makes homework not allowed.
I have a friend that's that is quite accomplished, probably as accomplished as anybody I've ever met. we were just hanging out yesterday. He is so unassuming. You'd never think that he had done all the things he's done. So he was telling me what he did. So parents, listen for this one. This is a good move. He goes into the office at his kid's school. He's like, "Hey, listen, just want to clarify something with you. You have my kids 7:40 to 3:20. 5 days a week. Congratulations. You have them 0 at any other time. They will never do homework. They will never do a special project. They will never do any sort of studying at home ever, no matter what. And I mean ever. So if you have a problem with that, then I'll move my kids somewhere else. Otherwise, I don't care what your rules are. I don't care what teacher they have. I don't care what the other parents think. I don't care. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to get my kid to do your homework. My child will have me educate them the way I want to educate them outside of your 740 to 320 block. You got them then? You want them to do homework? They do it then or not at all? You want them to study for project? Do it then or not at all? I thought that was a pretty bold and logical approach to dealing with something that should be unlawful. You don't say no to him. Yeah, okay, yes, Massa.
I believe it, yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Right. Yep. Did things. That's right.
Here's another hot take. Colleges also give out a lot of homework.
Yeah, that's crazy. Colleges give out homework. It's like, give me a break.
Busy
So
work.
we're going to transition to our final topic, which is politics and government. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on innovation in politics and government. And if any of you have strong opinions about certain politicians or governors, here's what I would say to you. If you have strong opinions about people or a tribe, is if you hate or hated Trump or Clinton or Bush or Obama, if you loved or hated them, you might have bought into tribalism. You might be glorifying and demonizing people and organizations, and that may not be the best decision. So we don't want to talk about glorifying and demonizing people or organizations during this moment. I think everybody is probably worthy of honor. What I do want to talk about is innovation in politics and government, because things have completely changed. And if you look at the stuff that politicians are doing in our nation and in mass, it's pretty radical how different things are. So I'm very intrigued in your thoughts, and you can say whatever you want. I'm just throwing out my 2 cents.
Well, I tend to agree. I look, the old saying that, those who do not know their their past are condemned to repeat it, I think the best thing that's come out of politics or government is the ability for them to provide us with the security and to give us the freedom to innovate and move forward. And for government to get out of the way is the best, I think, solution for any kind of entrepreneur that wants to move forward. Someone told me a while back, or I heard, that Steve Jobs and Microsoft couldn't be started nowadays because of all the regulations and so forth. So, that's government dictating how you're going to proceed forward with the vision that you have.
Or they'd have to go to Puerto Rico to start their company.
Puerto Rico, okay, fine. So, in terms of the future or present, I think government has or should have a limited vision or perspective on what we do, because it's not their job. Their job is to keep us safe and get out of our way so we can innovate like Steve Jobs did and Microsoft and the Oracles. You name it. It didn't come from government. Nothing comes from there. It comes from us as the people. We innovate. Government takes from us. As we innovate, they take our intellectual property, they take our thoughts and our money to provide, for those who don't, and so forth. But the current climate, I think, is that I hope it gets more fragmented. We should start locally to look at our local, and then state, and then federal. So look at your local council, look at your local area, look at your state and what they're doing, and have an impact as a community to give you the freedom, maximum freedom to innovate and be progressive that way.
It's awesome. Ted, take us to the future. You've traveled all over the world. You've been involved in citywide transformation, even country transformation, in different places around the world and different cities here locally. And so you have a very you have a very compelling experience when it comes to governing people and the political environment. What I'd love for you to do is to tell us what your vision is for our friends like Lord Way, right? Like, what's your vision when Lord Way's 50 and he has another decade under his belt being a Lord in the House of Lords over in UK? Like, what's your vision for a person like him who governs a place like Shoreditch? Or what's your vision for, the next president of the United States, or the next state senator, or the next city council member? Like, how would you, or even just somebody that is the leader of a community? Like, because in a sense, that's a political decision. So talk to us a bit about
first, I just feel like we need to get back and, like you said, honor, Obama and then Trump. I see actually the similarities between them. They both proved that what you need to be president, is the ability to win a campaign. That's just how it's defined. But
well said.
But let's just take a moment to realize, as adamantly as our country feels so passionately on these two different sides, we have lived an incredible positive miracle. Power went from Obama to Trump, and there was not widespread bloodshed. That is an incredible innovation, and I see my friend from Dubai shake. I love immigrants because they're able to see it for what it is. That's incredible. I see, I think it was in a car, someone mentioned a part, that's the governor, I actually see that that's the direction government's going to go. I actually feel very, very positive about it. There's going to be bumps in the road like there always are. But government, I see a partnership, and we're, like you shared, I have lots and lots of positive examples. And I see like the innovation of government working together with business, working together with the private sector, working together with the nonprofit sector, and solving problems. And we've seen incredible work. Like you were sharing earlier about the work of Valley Christian, doing this innovative stuff in education. They're putting satellites in space. And one of their innovative programs is taking this through a program called the Firehouse, and taking kids that qualify to get into this who've had 4 Fs. So these are the kids that are on a track towards incarceration, and they're not set up for success. They're coming into this program, their whole lives, their outlook is changing, and their motto is, the sky's no longer the limit. Now I'm a rocket scientist. I can do anything. And that changes their lives. That's an example of a private organization, a private school, partnering with the public schools, the government. That program doesn't actually take place on Valley. Valley has taken that to the public schools. And then the faith community, the people who are running that are faith-based. It's a community project. And I see more and more programs like that. Like one program we're seeing, one test case is in Ciudad Juarez, where it was a partnership between the government, business, and the faith-based community. And it was really the faith-based community that was the entrepreneurial catalyst to start it. But it went from the most violent city in the world to, within 18 months, being normalized. The violence dropped 90%. This was in 2012, 2013. And now it's been transformed. A program's come out of that in Spanish, it's you can thrive without bribes, because they say you can't thrive without bribes. They've turned that around. It's an educational program. So it's the faith-based community partnering with the government, partnering with business communities who are getting on board because they have an interest in eliminating bribery to fund it. And now this has had tremendous impact to decrease corruption, and it's spread throughout the city, across the city and across the nation now. And it's a partnership. I see that happening more and more, and I see government shifting from this negative view we have to actually solving problems, but it's going to be all of us together. One of the innovations of the Thrive Without Bribes program was teaching it's public education on both sides, to not just blame those who are taking bribes, but also educate the public. If you're giving a bribe, you're part of the problem, so stop pointing the finger.
Yep.
I see more and more of that.
So we're now, thank you, Ted. We're now transitioning to the final closing keynote. You know, I think one of the most important things in innovation is what happens under pressure in a live environment. For instance, none of you planned on being here yesterday, so all of you made a plan to be here sometime in the last 24 hours. Because I had a different event planned and I've moved that to the fall, and so I'm like, well, I have the space, and like let's think through what is the best thing to do. And I thought, you know what, I want to do a last minute invite for a small group to have this type of conversation. I've never done this exactly like this before, and I thought, you know, I like the idea, like what will happen if I sit with a dozen people that are innovators, entrepreneurs, friends, maybe some strangers, and we kind of like have some conversations and see what happens when nobody's prepared, nobody has notes, nobody really knows what's coming. And you know, cool things happen under pressure, right? Like we stuck on schedule. Like we were within probably 5 or 15 seconds of every single 5-minute block that I had because of that amazing monitor right there that told me the little timer. Another thing is, like, all of you got to innovate today. You know, you didn't have a script, right? You did not have like a plan of what you wanted to share. You just knew that you were in a moment, and it's like, well, what do I want to share? And I think one thing that I'll say about innovation is when you put the sails up, you'd be surprised how wind comes into them. When you act out of courage and risk, then most likely there's going to be grace and momentum, you know, that meets that. It's like your courage and your risk is the sail of your life. And this is the most important thing about innovation, because innovation's the air game, okay? Like entrepreneurship's the ground game. Like innovation is where you drop bombs and walk away and see the smoke cloud above you. It's where you have all the ideas, and then it's like, I am so, you know, like I'm so innovative. This is the great ideas. It's the entrepreneurship that is where all your friends die. That's where people go to get bankrupt, and that's where they go to get drug addictions, and you know, yeah, I mean that's the ground game that you get worked. And regardless if you primarily are in the air game of innovation or the ground game of entrepreneurship, or like many of us both, regardless of where you're at, my declaration is this: the sail that will take you where you want to go, or maybe the sail that will take you where you're supposed to go, is courage, risk, recklessness, you know, dangerous decisions, things that don't seem logical. Now, of course, that's not how you live your life all the time. You should make logical, sound, wise decisions as often as possible. But when you say to yourself, well, that seems stressful, or that seems like a lot of pressure, or like, what if nobody comes? It's just me and a bunch of empty chairs, you know, or whatever the thing is that you're facing. If you will just put the sail of courage up, then most likely you're going to have the experience you've had before and the experience that others have, and that experience is that great things happen when you step out. And I think today was kind of interesting in that, because none of us really, we don't, there's no teleprompter, right? Like, we're just having an open conversation. It's just that we happen to be having it in front of some people that are watching live, and we happen to be having it in front of people that will watch the archive. And then also, I imagine that some of you, I certainly will take this content and splice and dice and cut it up for other uses over time. And I think a big thing for me with innovation is, like, what can you innovate real time? It's one thing to talk about innovations happening today or innovation that's going to happen in the future in industries. It's a whole nother thing to say, I'm going to set my mind, I'm going to set my action toward innovating. And, you know, I'm not an event guy. I had helped friends with events for a long time because it was good for gathering and making money for them and whatnot. For me, I have done events the last year and a half. I've done about 20 of them, and I'm still suck at doing events. I do so many things wrong. But one thing that I am willing to do with events is take risk and to just trust it'll kind of work itself out. And like, I like to do new things. Like, this is the third structured way I've done an event here at DocuSign. Right, the first way was I was standing there interviewing, and then I had a group, and I basically was calling people up to come talk with me randomly. If you want to talk, come up here right now. Like, pretty unique, risky, but it turned out to be like some of the greatest content. Another time we were over there, and we kind of had, you know, people like facing a stage, and this time it's kind of like a open community. And the media team and I will never know if we should do this unless we try it. Right? And until I have a chance to kind of text you or email you one-on-one and be like, hey, like, highlight, you know, what would you change? And it's like, oh, gosh, there's something there. We should do that system more often, or we shouldn't. And innovation doesn't have to be like, you know, contact lenses that are augmented reality. Innovation doesn't have to be like our phone is the size of a ring and like this is everything. Like, innovation doesn't have to be like avatar that lives on the internet and our personality and a shadow of our soul goes on forever. Like, it doesn't have to be so extravagant. Innovation can just be, well, what kind of risk can I take today? I think the best risk that I've taken in the last couple of months was I was walking in Puerto Rico, and as I was walking in Puerto Rico, I've been going there a lot for a bunch of reasons, and as I'm walking there, I passed by this poetry place. It's kind of a famous place, Poets Passage. And they had open mic. And like, I have literally thought about doing open mic for my whole life. But I never did it. Like, you know, as 20 years as an adult, I never done it. And I think about it, and I'm always like, no, man, I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't have anything prepared. And I go, no, I'm going to do it this time. And like, my heart had not pounded like that for years because I constantly am risking. Like, everything is risk all the time. Everything is like on the edge. And so I'm so used to managing stress and anxiety, and like high stress, high anxiety to me just feels like a walk in the park, right? But like, this was like I'm like, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to do spoken word. I've never done this before. This is a very, very bad idea, self. But you know what? I mean, honestly, that was as good of a decision as I've made. Like, just going up there and giving it a shot and spending 10 minutes, and I was really pleased with how it all happened, and the kind of the, you know, it's like, it just was great. And that is the type of innovation that I would encourage all of you to do. You know, innovation where it's a matter of just taking a risk, right? Where the innovation is not like, it's not 4.2 on your software. Right? It's not like a self-driving car. It doesn't have to be something so extravagant, right? It can be something as simple as like, well, you know, I've never attempted therapy. I wonder how therapy, that act of courage, might help me become more self-aware so that I can make better decisions, so I can innovate me. You know, I've never done this thing or that thing. And like, make these decisions around innovation for yourself, because to build a company, it will come and go. The truth is, even your kids will come and go. Your parents will definitely go. You know, nobody lives forever. So every single thing except for yourself will come and go in your life. Not that you should be self-focused. Like, there's a certain element of a balance there. But there's definitely something that I want to express about I want to declare for me, and I want to encourage all of you, that as you think about innovation, think about innovating your life. How can you make innovation a part of your life, a part of your regular rhythm? So Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and all of you, I had a great time. I hope you did as well. Yeah, I think it was a lot of fun. And thanks for your attention. If you want a Gorilla Branders shirt, I'll mail one to you. These things are sweet. You just got to leave a comment. Do some sort of vain act of liking or sharing. Because it's more than just vanity. It's so other people can see this incredible content. And that's all for now. I'll be back with another event when I am. The end of July in New Jersey, actually. The Voice Summit. It's going to be sweet. Pete, thank you for inviting me. And goodbye.